out of this rabbit hole and I'm not finding one immediately.
That's awesome, Joyce. So I just, by the way, I started recording because I wanted to record this for Michelle since she couldn't be here. I just thought about it too late. So Joyce, that is awesome. And I think you bring up a really good point about the people who might normally know, don't know. And so I want to, give you all permission, and I've given myself permission that we may not know the answer, right? Because there are circumstances that we don't have control over. And I want you to know that that's okay to not know everything and not have the answer for everybody. Because sometimes some of us, and not all of us here necessarily, but some of us don't like not knowing. We like having the answer. We like providing solutions. I think everybody in this team likes to be able to provide solutions for people, and especially our agents and the people that we take care of in this company, and or each other or our families or whatever that is. And so it's okay not to know and to say you don't know, and just being along for the ride with everybody else. Now it is up to us to navigate that uncertainty or what we may not know as quickly as possible and come up with the best solutions that we possibly can. But it's okay to admit that and tell people, look, I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know the answer. I don't know if your deal is going to fall out because of X, Y, or Z. So thank you for that. Thank you for that input. So again, talking about fear, and whenever people panic, so moving along with this idea of fear that we may feel at times, and with uncertainty, fear can lead to panic, right? So just understanding a little bit about that and what happens when people panic. Well, whenever people panic and they make decisions out of panic, are the consequences typically good? If somebody makes a decision out of panic, would you guess that the consequences are normally good consequences or not?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Probably not, right? So what we want to get away from is making decisions out of that place. So if you do find yourself panicking, and this is a really good one for Michelle too. So I'm glad we're recording it. And anybody who's a broker, well, Sam too, I mean, you guys all get an element of this, but I want to talk about the brokers for a minute that get phone calls from agents that are in a panic about their deal potentially falling apart. Keone, does that happen? Does that ever happen, Keone? You ever get a call from somebody who's worried about their deal falling apart?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So this is more common now. And what we have to not do, and this goes for anybody who's talking to an agent in our company or any other company, when they panic, you have to take a step back, take a deep breath, and do not get sucked into that. You are the one that is going to be the voice of reason. Now, if you start to find yourself emotionally getting sucked in, which I know people have in the past, the best thing to do is to say, you know what, I hear what you're saying. I'm listening. Let me think about this. Let me help you come up with a solution. Give me 30 minutes, whatever that is, and let me call you back. Because one, you want to diffuse their level of panic and let them know you're going to help them. And two, make sure you don't get sucked into that and give you a moment to really think clearly about it and how you can be a problem solver. And it's okay if you wait till the next day. I mean, if it's an emergency, it's an emergency, but you just have to be calm, right? So we have to be really careful about getting sucked into that. And I know that I can sometimes. I mean, you guys have seen it with me, and I do my best not to. Although if it's like, a mega agent that's having a huge problem that, I feel like it's our responsibility to help and take care of, there is a sense of urgency there. And sometimes I can be reactive. And so we want to and that's not bad in and of itself. We just don't want to perpetuate that. And by the way, when I'm talking to them, I don't necessarily say that to them. I am the voice of reason, and I'm calming to them, and then I may come to you and go, fix this, help me, help them right now, right? So you might get that part from me, they don't. So I'll do a better job of not doing that to you too. I don't think I do it very often. I know that I do it sometimes. So another thing that they said, which I loved, was, and you can make notes on your workbooks, is, and your workbooks have typable things in there too. So make sure you like save them and then you can type into them. So you can kind of take notes in other areas too, but you're gonna be taking notes when we go into the exercises. They said in a crisis, facts are your friends. In a crisis, facts are your friends. And I loved this because again, we can get sucked up into things that are not fact-based. So what we want to do is, and we may not have all the facts of everything that we're trying to problem solve, but we actually do have a lot of facts. And the facts that we have as a company are our market trends, are looking at our multi-year trends, looking at our pink and green sheet, looking at our daily company dollar, which is daily, right? That's really the finger on the pulse of what's going on. Looking at how many listings we're taking, looking at all the lore categories, and this is for you ALC members and agents in your own business, is really looking at a daily basis or a weekly basis of where am I at with these lore categories and where do my leading indicators show me what's going on. So as I mentioned to some of you, we took last month half the listings that we normally take. So our listings taken were cut in half. That's a leading indicator. So we have to, and by the way, by focusing on the numbers, yeah, it might be a little concerning, a little uneasy feeling about what does this mean and where we're heading in terms of the uncertainty. However, we can take comfort in a way in the numbers and in the facts because it's something we have to go by, right? And we can make decisions ultimately based on what those facts are telling us. And that's how we want to be making decisions. And I'm prefacing all of this because we're going to go into the exercises. So the first thing we want to look at for our business and what we're doing right now is, are we in the red? Okay, right now, are we in the red, which is kind of going backwards? You know, are we losing our way, you know, out of profitability, I would say, and really red would be in the kind of in the negative financially. Okay, so are we in the red? And or are we in the yellow? Yellow would be, and again, I'm telling you guys all this because this is for you and your businesses as well. If you're running your own business, are we in the yellow? And the yellow is kind of we're you know, stabilizing, we're holding steady, we're kind of maintaining, we're not going up or down. And then green is, are we in the green? Green is obviously we have an upwards trajectory in our business. Things are going well. What are some businesses that you would say right now are probably in the green? What are some types of businesses? Amazon. Amazon's in the green. Probably. What's that? Hand sanitizers are in the green.
Zoom.
Zoom's in the green. Good. Grocery stores in the green. Yeah, exactly. So
toilet paper.
Toilet paper is in the green. Actually, Paul Brubaker said an interesting thing about toilet paper. Oh, and he is going to do one for Maui. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he didn't say it about toilet paper, but he said it about manufacturing in general, which is, you know, we think, okay, the toilet paper companies are making so much money now. However, it's a big challenge for them to pivot because in the manufacturing industry, they have they set everything up for the year based on what they anticipate that they're going to have to produce. So it's actually a real challenge for them to pivot into producing more, which he explained that. So supply and demand, you know, it takes time for them to catch up basically. So it's interesting. And they can only do so much. However, I think they're, you know, overall they're okay.
Yeah, I think
so. They're doing okay. It wouldn't be a bad business to be in right now.
Right.
Hey,
so
Lisa, there's
yes.
another industry that's in the green right now is Command. It doesn't come with any germs. So, I mean.
That's funny. No germs. Command.
No germs.
Okay, there's like a marketing play there. What is that?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah. Command. No germs. Work your business without all the germs or something like that. I love it. Okay, so where are we is the first question. Okay, where are we in terms of our business right now? Would anybody like to, and you guys kind of know, I mean, especially those of you who are in our meetings every week, tell me a little bit about where you see us as a company right now. Are we in the red? Are we in the yellow? Or are we in the green? Nancy's raising her hand.
I would think that we're in the red only because we're not able to work. It's been over a month and now we're looking at another month. So we're not doing the things we normally would do to create more business for ourselves. So, and people are fearful. So, and people aren't traveling, so they're not here. And our big market share would be second home owners who would not live here on island and they're not here. So I would think we're in the red. And when you look at inventory, it's definitely down. So we're not, I don't think we're producing as much as we did a year ago. That's for sure.
That is definitely true. That part about not producing a year ago. Yeah, we're, does anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways that we need to look at this. One is at KW Maui as its own entity and in absolute numbers, meaning year over year, month over month.
Mhm.
The other important thing about how we look at how we are and what we are as a company is how quickly we can pivot. So for example, another market comparison is how do we favor compared to the rest of our market or the rest of our board?
Yep.
And part of pivot isn't just cash flow. Part of pivot is positioning ourselves for the future. Everybody's going to take a hit. The question is, how quickly are we going to climb out of it, and how are we going to be positioned compared to everybody else moving forward?
Yeah, love that. Absolutely. And yeah, both of you guys are it's absolutely true. Thank you for that. And so what I would say to kind of where we're at, and then, yeah, that's why we're having this meeting, right? Where are we going? How are we going to adapt? And we do have to make some immediate changes to what we're going to do, what we're doing today in the next 90 days. And then coming out of that, we talk about the future, right? What we're doing for the future. And we have goals and we have things in place that we've set that we want to get to ultimately in the future. That was our plan before there was a little bit of a derailment. So as a company, currently, right now, we are between yellow and red. So we are, I would say, closer to yellow in the sense currently right now that we have not gotten to the place, you know, knock on wood, where we are in a negative position. We're not losing money, which is great. And the pipeline, however, right, we also are not quite yet far into this as far as we could be in terms of really feeling the ramifications of what you're talking about, Nancy, which is that reduction. We have been seeing it. We saw a drop off, a significant drop off, and we are continuing to see the trend go that way. However, it slowed down slightly. So where we're at right now is we've been able to, and we're kind of taking it month by month, is we've been able to maintain enough income where we can still operate and we're not losing money and there's no cash calls at the moment, knock on wood. And hopefully that doesn't, happen. And so part of the reason we want to really look at what we're doing right now is how do we continue, if we can continue to be stable and not go backwards. And we've gone backwards from where we were, absolutely. But I mean, not go into the red. That's a win. I mean, and part of what we're going to look at today is what does a win look like for us in the next 90 days, which would be different than what does a win look like for us normally. Does that make sense? So just so you kind of know where we are now, we are seeing, Kaylee, to your point, compared to the rest of the board, unfortunately, based on our pink and greens and our lures, we actually have lost. We had significant market share and a significant reach over the next company or the next several companies or the board in general. And we have seen that change a little bit. So it is compared to the rest of the board as well that we're seeing some shifting happen there. So just a heads up as well. And so that's kind of where we're at. Again, the good news is we are maintaining the ability to pay our bills at this moment. Okay, now our expenses are high relative to other market centers, but our company dollar is also typically high compared to other market centers. So what we're seeing now is the company dollar is decreasing, and it is relative, of course, but we're seeing company dollar decreasing and our expenses are decreasing. However, we have not been quite able to reduce our expenses enough to match the decrease in what we're seeing in production. So over time, over a longer period of time, that's not going to pay off, right? That could be problematic. However, over the short period of time, we can make it potentially another couple of months. We did receive a grant for from PPP. We did apply for PPP. Thank you, Christy and Shelby. And we received some money. We got $75,000, and that
great.
will help, which is awesome. And it was based on, qualification. They kind of determined how much they would give us. Shelby, have we actually received that check yet? I know we got approved, and we're still waiting for the funds, though. Correct, Shelby?
Yeah, Christy didn't check the account yet, but she knows that we did get the money.
Okay.
She doesn't know if it hit the account yet.
Great. So that's going to help us on the expense side, right? That's obviously going to help us. And we did cut expenses. Right now, we're up to about 14. What did we end up yesterday, Shelby, after our second meeting? 14,000 a month, I think we cut. It was 10,000 and then the additional 4,000. And then we're working on the spaces still, the other 2 spaces, correct?
Yeah.
But we have the potential to cut up to 30,000 a month is what we found if we can get, now that's a big if, because that is going to be dependent on our space. The space is the highest, spaces and salaries are our highest expenses by far. So space is, if we can get, we're working with, so far we've gotten some relief on our Kihei office space. We have not yet gotten approval on Kahului or Whalers. So Tony is still working on Whalers and Fairway Shops, right, Shelby? And then you guys, Colette and Chris, you guys have been working on Ka'ahumanu Center, and we're making progress with Queen Ka'ahumanu Center actually. So, we'll see. I mean, we have some room there, and we've cut pretty much all the other expenses. We went through the budget. Well, we're going to go another time through the budget once more, combing through our budget, just like we're asking you guys to do, so you can cut your expenses. And so anyway, we're making progress. I would have loved to have seen us been able to do a 20% cut in the first go around, because that would have helped. However, it's where we're at. So we're at about a 25% decrease in, we had been at about a 25% decrease in our company dollar income, I think, Shelby, right? And then that could be as much as 40%. So again, if we want to be really conservative, we're looking at potentially 40%. Now, at the same time, we're expanding Big Island, right? So we are continuing to make an investment for the future payoff of that. And that's going very well. And if it was at a different time, meaning we weren't facing this situation right now, we'd be in great shape in terms of where we're looking at in the future. So we still are, it's just here we are today. So I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of what it looks like right now, so you guys all know about where we are right now. Any other questions about that, or thoughts or comments?
Lisa, was there any
Yes.
progress with you talking to Nancy about our lease here on the Big Island?
Kaylee E., do you want to speak to that?
Nancy has not responded to much contact, excuse me, about anything this week. She has acted on the construction issues without response, but again, no response either to that or anything. So it's just probably a question of having to go down there and corner her and talk to her.
Okay, because right now we don't pay, I think we have through June 1, is that right?
Should
We
be
wouldn't be
first 2
writing
months.
another check through June 1 as it is with that guy, with that space right now. So we've got a little time, although as soon as we can find out from her, and she may just be waiting, right? Waiting and seeing.
Yeah,
So we
did
haven't,
have-
go ahead.
We did have more response from Hilo. We're still in the no pay portion, and when that time comes and goes, if we're not open, they're willing to talk to us about it, but they're not going to commit to anything right now.
Okay. Okay, yeah, some are taking it a month by month basis. Okay, great. So Entree Leadership, which is one of Dave Ramsey's kind of offshoots of a business, their purpose or their mission statement is that they exist to help small business owners win. the whole purpose of this 90-day plan is also to come out of this season, meaning this COVID season, this situation, with a stronger business than we came in with it. So the opportunity we have is, you know, like Kaylee was talking about, how do we take this, pivot, and then maybe we come up with ideas and things that are really innovative and creative that help us create a stronger business in the future. So one of the things that I had talked about, and we'll get a little bit more into this when we get into the planning, the activities section, is what can we do to help us today come out of this in a better place that we entered it with. And I have two ideas that I'm going to share with you later. We'll talk more about, but it's ISAs and Facebook. I'll talk to you about social media and ISAs a little bit later, and then I really want to get your input and ideas as well. So we're pivoting the way, we're looking at pivoting the way that we're currently using our time. We're also pivoting the way we're currently using our resources. So have you guys, I mean, it seems like an obvious question and answer, but have you guys seen your schedules change? Have you guys been looking at or pivoted at all the way that you typically spend your time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Everybody, I mean, has anybody not pivoted the way they've been using their time or what they've been focused on? Has that not changed for anybody? I'm curious. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just curious if anybody is really stuck to the same kind of schedule that they've had.
Well, the focus, I guess, is still there. The delivery system is different.
Okay, so for you, it's really, yeah, the resources, but also maybe how you're managing your time, right? So that,
Yeah.
has that changed? Or you're pretty much reacting to contract review, and problem solving.
Yeah, so it's still kind of the same there. I mean, there are things that are different because, like, the 8:30 call, the 7:30
Yep.
challenge, but like I said, it's the delivery more than
The how you're doing it.
yeah.
Although the calls, I mean, this is a regimented schedule, right? You didn't have that before. So those are things that have changed because it's putting you into a little bit more of a regimented schedule, which
Yeah.
I think is a really big key to what we've done, that we've done really well, I might add.
No,
Because
and
I think,
the not the rumor, but the word is out, you know, about our 8:30 call with other
Mhm.
brokerages, and people
Oh,
are
is
like,
it?
what? You know, like, you guys get together every morning at 8:30, like, you know, and so they are envious of that, I would say.
yeah, I think for the people that have been on the call, it's been really helpful. I you know, unfortunately, it's not everybody. I think a good goal in our care calls is just to get people to jump on as much as we possibly can. Although the people that are there, I think it's great, and it's really good to be engaged with everybody. Okay, so let's get into some of the exercises and some of the workbook. So let me pull up the workbook too, so that I'm looking at what you guys are looking at. I gotta delete some of this stuff on my desktop. Hang on. Trade leadership. There it is. Okay. Okay, so I'm going on page 2 of the workbook, and let me just download. So what I want to make sure you guys do is that you download the workbook, and then you open it. You download it and save it, and then you open it in a new PDF, rather than just opening it and typing into the one that you just opened from the email or from this thing. Like, download, if you download and open it, save it and reopen it. And the reason I say that is it may or may not, if you don't download it and save it somewhere to a file and then reopen that file, it may not keep the text that you type in, just like other PDFs, right? They can be temperamental that way. So make sure that you do that. And then that way you can be sure to save what you type in there. Okay, so we're on step 1, which is commit to communicate. So it says extreme situations require extreme levels of communication, which I love. And we've talked about this before. It's pretty much impossible to over communicate at this time to people. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about bugging people. Don't worry about, I mean, unless they tell you. Don't worry about, you know, over communicating. If you're an agent with clients, if you're in our leadership and executive team with agents, over communication is critical right now. And it says, and this is more guidance for the leadership side of it for you guys, but it says, if you want a team that thinks and acts like owners, communicate to them like they're owners. And again, that goes with us that goes for us at every level. It goes for me with you guys, right? Which is what this is about. You know, I want you to have an interest in this and ownership in this. And I also believe that the agents have ownership in this as we communicate with them. I mean, again, look at the people on the calls, on the 8:30 calls. Those guys are in it and they have ownership of what is happening in their lives and in general, and how that ties into the company and their peers. So treat people as though they have ownership, and they're going to have ownership.
Lisa, I noticed
Yes.
when I was doing my care calls this round, the calls are longer. People, I don't know if it's that they're not they're not distracted, but it seems like people are really wanting to hear from us, really wanting to share what's going on in their life, and really wanting to know what we're doing as a company. The calls are probably twice as long. Maybe instead of 5 or 10 minutes, they're 10 or 12 minutes. It's interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting, and I would totally say that's great. That's progress, because what that tells me is people want to have the conversation, are engaged in that, right? Rather than saying, yeah, I'm great, Sam, you know, thanks, or I'm busy, or don't bother me, or whatever, right? Like, we want that. And then we also want them to share with us what's going in their lives so that we can help them navigate through it. And sometimes they just want us to listen, and sometimes they want us to help. So, right, that's part of up to us to see what is it that they need and how can we help. And of course, we're asking them that in the question, right? How can we help? What can I do to help you? I mean, I've been asking every person that. And some people have told me things that I can do to help them, and then we do it, which is awesome, and it feels really good. And these are the things, just like, and I think you guys get this as you're making your care calls, it becomes so clear that this is what ties the relationship. This is what binds us and puts us in a relationship on a deeper level. And we've talked about that in the 8:30 calls with you guys calling your clients that are agents, and how that is solidifying your relationship. It's the same with our company and our agents. And I would encourage every single one of you who, if you're not making care calls yet, and I know if you're on the executive team, you're absolutely making care calls, and on the leadership team, I think everybody is. ALC members, right? You guys are making care calls to your sphere and your client base. I would encourage you to do the same with the agents in the company. You know, and it doesn't matter if other people have already called them. It's great for them to have multiple touches. Make your own list, but just call people and see how they're doing. Because I mean, I look at like a Lee Wheeler. I'm just going to give a couple examples. So I look at a Lee Wheeler who, poor guy, had this just nightmare challenge with a referral check from Las Vegas. And he reached out, needed help with it. We helped him with, you know, getting this thing sorted out. So I was involved, Shelby was involved, Christy was involved. I don't know who else of you were involved, but and granted, we ended up making a mistake on our end. I mean, they made a big mistake in Vegas. We got that resolved. And then we made a mistake on our end. And you know, poor Lee was like, just could not get paid off of this thing, the right amount of money. And then Shelby, you talked to him yesterday, and I was so concerned because we had made an error after all of that mess on our end. And yet when you talked to him, I mean, he was laughing, he was cracking up, because he was just kind of able to look at it as though this has been, you know, craziness and a nightmare. But what you didn't know, Shelby, is that he had sent me an email the night before, and he said, thank you so much for your help in doing this and taking the time to, you know, I know you guys are busy and I really appreciated it. And it was a referral check, and you know, they messed up, but thank you for reaching out to them. Thank you for making it happen. I'm so grateful. Like, that kind of stuff is, you know, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he could, but it's way less likely, because we're helping with what he needs help with right now. Does that make sense? So that was an example. And we've had a couple others of those as well. What are a couple others that you guys have seen that would be an example of a situation where when you reached out to the agent and then they needed help with something and we helped them, and we were there for them?
I have one.
Yep.
Bob Wills.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
He
So,
gave me
yeah.
names.
Yeah.
He called me last night because he has a closing. So we were texting back and forth, and I said, well, you know, he's like, what's a DA? And I said, well, did you do your green sheet, right? And it was crickets. I was like, uh-oh. So I called him and I said, hey, Bob, you know, let's talk about the green sheet. And, you know, he's eating dinner, so he called me back, whatever. And then so basically I walked him through how to do a green sheet. You know, I was on my computer, he was on his, and I was like, okay, click that, click that, click that. I found that it's way more easy than trying to, you know, tell him where it is and all that. But he was getting a little crazy because there's so many websites we have, right? When the company that he came from, there was nothing, right? And to come into ours from nothing is a little bit overwhelming, you know? And I told him, you know, I just had to reassure him that, you know, you'll get it. And there's a couple of websites that you really want to concentrate on. And, you know, the others are for helping you, you know, marketing and whatever. But kind of had to talk him off the ledge a little bit.
Good. Well, so yeah, that's great. I did see that one email and I wanted to make sure you guys were communicating, but I knew you would. So yeah,
to talk to because he, you know, he's hilarious, right? So it was,
he's hilarious.
Conversation the whole way. So
yeah. I mean, that's the other kind of fun part about it is you really get to know the agents also on a deeper level, and it's kind of fun to, I don't know, just get to know them more. You know, I mean, I pretty much know most of the people, but not everybody, and with how they're handling with what's going on too. So it's really kind of fun to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So just wrapping up on the step one on the communication. So what we want to really do is think of communication like a toolbox. And our toolbox includes various sources of how we communicate, including email, text, video, and we want to use various sources. And I think right now we are super email heavy. And what I've noticed about that lately, because I've been asking when I make our internal care calls and also external care calls or external calls to other agents and other companies, is that a lot of people don't get our emails. They say, I didn't see that, or maybe they get it, they don't pay attention to it, maybe they, whatever, it goes in their promotional folders. But I think, especially if it comes out of Constant Contact, I'm finding that that's happening. And then sometimes just the front desk emails that we send are also they're not getting them. So, or they have a ton of emails like me, right? They're bombarded and they just don't see it and they don't know what to focus on in their email. So I think we could probably improve upon our ability to communicate with them in various ways. Obviously, the calls are the best. Texting, we can definitely do texts through Twilio to our agents without worry. Texting outside of the company can get a little dangerous in terms of mass texting, but I think we could probably use our text platform a little bit better and more frequently, where maybe we want to do a once a week text, or if we have a training class coming up or on Wednesdays, we say, hey, shift starts in an hour. So just how do we communicate in different ways? And then the video ideas that we've had in the past, Cheryl, oh my gosh, that you and I have, how long have we been talking about that, that we haven't implemented, would be a great opportunity to do those too, and it's not just me, you know, somebody does one, you know, once a week. I know Nicole was doing them for a little while. I don't know, Nicole, if you're still doing them, but through BombBomb, I haven't seen one in a little while. But how do we communicate with them in other ways, whether it's, you know, a Monday mindset, a Wednesday wisdom, or here's the training that we think is most critical for you, or Bold, here's how you register for Bold, here's the link via text. So it's just something to think about. That could be part of the plan that we come up with as we continue to go through today. Just think about it that way. The other thing that they talked about in terms of communication is there is a rhythm to communication as well, right? You ever notice when things seem to be flowing and, you know, agents, when you're working with your clients and you kind of get into this rhythm of communication that works, and you kind of feel it when it doesn't work, right? It seems really weird, like the responses are odd, or you're not getting the responses, or we're sending them too much information, or we're not sending them enough information. So we got to really find what that rhythm is for us and maybe come up with something consistent that we can then continue to do in the long term. Right now, though, we want to over communicate. As we just have discussed previously, not today, but that part of what helps prevent panic and fear is people getting into a routine, right? Their daily schedule, the 8:30 calls, something that they can count on. And the other thing is the rhythm of communication, because rhythm is very much like routine. It's something they can count on. They know they're going to get Latasha's email every Friday, which is awesome. And that's an example. So they can count on that. They can rely on that. Those that are getting it and paying attention to it. They know we're going to be there for the 8:30 call during the week. So there's a couple other ideas that we can work around that if we want to. We're going to see how the 8:30 calls go when we transfer those calls to 4 o'clock, which we're going to do during Bold. Anyway, gave some examples. So what Dave Ramsey does is he has an all-team staff meeting once a week, which of course we do on Wednesdays. Our executive team meeting is on Wednesdays. He does devotional meeting once a week, and he does, but he also does he does tend to communicate with his entire team on a daily basis too. Kind of like we do with our, you know, you guys, the executive team on the daily 10. So I think that's all good. The question is there anything else that we want to add to that we're not doing right now that might be helpful for our agents to be able to really improve our communication? And this isn't a workbook exercise. In the exercise, there isn't one until step 2. However, I wanted to ask you guys if you have any ideas or you see any opportunity for a way for us to improve the rhythm of communication and or to diversify the sources of communication to be more effective than we are now.
Lisa, it's Nicole.
Yes.
You know, I actually think this is such a great topic because I agree with you, various sources. What I also agree is various people. What has really surprised me with reaching out to the new agents that are not in productivity coaching, they're in the mid-levels and the high levels, they are so happy to have a conversation with me. And one of the things I always ask them is, what's coming up for you? What are you not being able to find? And they all have a question. And so I answer the question or I find the source. And what I realize is I think that we need to be reaching out. I love that we're doing the shift calls. I think we actually need to be reaching out more. And because when I think there's sort of a impression that the leadership team is busy, right? So if there's more resources and more connections that they've made personally, then I feel like there's more chance of them reaching out to someone personally, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
I just think that's something that I was like, wow, I would love it if our new agents were having a conversation with somebody from the ALC was reaching out and going, hey, we're the ALC and how are you finding everything? And, you know, like, I don't know, like how many different directions could we approach people from? Because I'll tell you, it's almost like they're floored that somebody else is calling to help. They're just like, wow, cool. Yeah, can you help me with this? And I'm like, well, let's figure that out. And, you know, maybe I get them on a Facebook group or I get them to watch a certain video or do something. And they're like, this is awesome. Thank you so much for calling. And so I don't know what that looks like.
I think it looks like exactly what you said. I think we talked to the ALC about separating the roster, just like the executive and leadership team is doing. And that, you know, again, the more the better, and the more different people they hear from, the better. And I agree with you. And the questions that they have and the answers that people can provide may be very different based on who they're talking to. So ALC members, you guys they're going to have a completely different perspective and feeling about you reaching out to them, somebody who is at a high level of production in the company and is out there doing what they're trying to do, than me or, you know, Nicole or Dan or Keone or Latasha or Shelby or Sam, right? So I think I love that idea, and I do know other market centers absolutely do that. So yeah, I think that would be great. So it's really just a matter of separating the roster and the ALC going, yeah, we'll do that. We'll time block care calls to our agents because then we could certainly get through our roster even faster, because right now we're kind of starting the launch of these care calls every 4 weeks or so, because it's taking us 2 to 3 weeks to get through. So if we were able to, I mean, Dan, it was such a great story, Dan, when I was talking to you, it was hilarious. So we started doing these care calls, and we separated the roster, and we said, okay, everybody do your care calls. And I talked to Dan, and Dan was like, and I said to Dan, oh, how are your care calls going? Or something. We were having a conversation about it, Dan, and you go, and we talked about when we're going to start doing them again. And you says, and you said something like, what do you mean? I thought we were supposed to do them every week. So Dan literally has been calling through the entire Big Island roster, right? Every week, like he's just going over and over and over again, right, Dan?
That's exactly what you've been doing. Right. I'm still doing it. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to, but it's okay. I mean, it helps me stay in contact with everybody, and you know, and just touch base, even if it's just short.
So I love that, and I thought that was great and funny. And then I went, well, how cool! And imagine if we were able to really touch our roster, you know, once a week, or I mean, even once every 2 weeks. It's a big roster. Although if more of us are doing it, the more people we can touch, right? And I know we talk to, and my opportunity personally is to do a better job at tracking it for everybody else. Although now I'm thinking, I mean, if we're really doing all these calls and talking to everybody, I don't know that it's as critical to track unless they tell us something that we need to know that we should follow up on in the future, because we can just assume that everybody's getting touched. Whereas right now it's kind of like, oh, I want to know what the note was if so-and-so talked to them. And then I'll talk to people throughout the day and I'm not putting in my notes. So I wouldn't worry too much about the tracking. Not the tracking system, but the follow-up and the note-taking of that, as much as everybody having the spreadsheet and separating it. As long as we're tracking and know that every agent is being touched and is covered, that's really the most important thing, and that they're getting touched, you know, regularly. So what do you say, ALC members that are on the call, about that?
We did start this before, and I'll be honest in that, coming from the Big Island, I looked at it a little differently in that I just kind of leaned back away from it. But now that we have more Big Island agents, it makes sense. And I think I can assist in that as well. I'd love to call Maui agents, but not being from there and not knowing as many of them, I didn't think that made as much sense for me. But
it totally makes sense, because I think the whole purpose of this is call anybody. It's better if it's somebody you don't know. It's better if it's somebody that doesn't know you. It's an opportunity for you to say, hey, I'm Kaylee and I'm in Hilo, and I'm, you know, we're part of the same team, and how can I help you? I mean, I think that's awesome. I think that's huge.
Actually, I don't think it matters where we are, because to be honest, I don't really know most of the people of our 200 plus. I mean, back when we had 7, we knew everybody, and then it kind of exploded. So there's people that I don't know unless I see them at a meeting, or I see that they have a listing and they're KW. I go, oh, they're KW. So I think at this point in this situation, we can just divvy it up and kind of go through it. That would be fine with me.
Happy to do it.
Okay, awesome. And then let them know too. I mean, it's an opportunity to let them know about the ALC, right? So you're calling also because, hey, I'm on the Agent Leadership Council, and you know, for the company, and they may go, what's that? So I think, I think it's awesome. So I'm just going to make a note as we go. Care calls.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
About the communication. I think people call me because they know me, because I've had an introduction to them at the beginning when they're new, and when they'll ask me like a broker question, and when I say, hey, you need to call your broker and get that answer from them, they're like afraid that the broker's too busy, and I have to sort of like encourage them to call. I feel like what Nicole was saying is that the people feel like the management is too busy to deal with the little people. And I feel like we need to dispel that, like kind of.
Yeah. So if somebody says that, that would be an important thing in terms of a follow-up. So if somebody says to you that they're, or you get the sense they're reaching out to you because their broker's too busy. Oh, my broker's busy. I didn't want to bother them. I think the follow-up to that is that they're there to help you. Don't be
I
afraid
always
to
say
talk to
that.
them, and
I mean,
then tell the broker.
But
Yeah.
I feel like
Tell the broker.
The feeling is that they're too busy. I don't think people have even called the broker and found that they were too busy. I think they just come to me first because
Sure.
they think they're too busy, you know?
And that's a thing that I've, through my whole career, people always think the broker's too busy. But what would be helpful, Sam, is if you could text the broker.
Text the broker.
And just say, hey, look, this agent's, reaching out.
Okay.
Well,
and they call
okay.
me and they think you're, maybe too busy.
Mm-hmm.
So can I say something regarding that? Because I think
Sure.
it's the same conversation when we have new agents. What if the new agents were, they already connect. A lot of times they've had a conversation with you, Lisa, or whoever recruited them. They have a conversation with Sam or Errol. I'm reaching out to them. What if their broker reached out to them and the ALC reached out to them? Like, what if they were literally had a conversation with all of these people from the get-go, and that it would kind of break that ice for them. And, I almost feel like we're sort of skirting that versus, and I know the brokers are busy, but a 5-minute conversation to say, hey, I'm your broker, and I just wanted you to know that I'm here, and this is the best way to reach me, and we're going to work together, right? Or something like that. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it can be part of onboarding, for sure.
What if maybe when Sam sends her first email, to the agent, that she just CCs the broker, the assigned broker, and Nicole and whoever needs.
I don't know, but at the beginning, I don't know who the broker is going to be. Well, I sort of do, but not for sure.
So once that's assigned, yeah.
Right.
That was assigned again now?
Once it's assigned, I think who's assigning? So is Michelle, who's making the decision about the broker?
Michelle.
Right, so Michelle should do it. So Michelle could make the introduction. I'm volunteering her. She's not on the call.
I've been putting them in the Airtable, but I think, it's all based on where they're located.
Yeah, she should make the introduction to the broker and the agent via email, and then the broker can reach out.
Hey, Lisa, a little add-on to
Yes.
that. In my role, what I was doing before COVID happened is I was going through our office Market Center webpage, and I was looking at the profile of all of our agents in there, 270 of them, right? And I was looking for profile images that didn't have pictures on them. And I was going to call those agents and say, hey, can I help you set up your marketing profile? Just as an introduction thing. So it was that kind of a care call for them.
That's great, Robert. I love that.
I want to jump back, if we can, away
Yes.
from the calls, because I think we all understand that the calls are important, and it's a question of how and when they get done. A lot of the information, though, when it's coming in a written form, when we were talking earlier about emails and stuff like that, one of the problems I personally feel, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is it's information overload. So when we're talking about how can we get more information out, I honestly don't think that is what we need to be doing. I think what we need to be doing is getting the right information to the right people. And quite often that means not getting the unnecessary information to them. So I know it's more work, but in the way that Rochelle is going through and she's creating tags for all of our clients, if we can start tracking that as a leadership group, which agents or which leadership need which information, and only get it to them instead of flooding them with information they don't need, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good about not getting them information they don't need anymore. I think we've gotten better at that. Because basically most of the emails that go out, I think, are applicable to everybody. That said, there is additional information or additional target things that make sense for specific agents in the company. That is something I will tell you that Command MC will do, the leadership for the Command leadership. And I mean, the capabilities that that's going to have, now granted, in the meantime, I don't know what the solution to that is, because it was very cumbersome to do some of that work in the past. It's gonna be intelligent to be able to help guide us, and we can start tagging people based on their level of production, based on what training classes would work best for them. I mean, those are all things that are coming with Command for Leadership. In the meantime, though, I mean, yes, I agree with you that there may be information that goes out to some people. And what I would ask is that if you see that, or when you see that, let me know, or send an email back to me and Latasha and just say, or me and Latasha and Cheryl, and say, hey, here's an example. Or, I mean, I'd love to see what it is that's going out that we think is not unnecessary, I guess, what's still unnecessary. Because we've honed down on our correspondence several times. We've trimmed to the point where, I think we're there, but maybe we're not. So yeah, let me know as you see that, or if you have a specific example, and we'll figure that out. Or if you think certain content is best for certain people. I mean, I know the coaches do that for their group. I know that the West Side agents have their own group for certain things that are West Side specific. So yeah, let me know. Okay, let's go on to creating a desired future statement. So this will be our first activity. So the question that we're going to ask ourselves in this exercise is, what is it that we want to have happen in the next 90 days? Okay, what do we want to accomplish, and what does a win look like for us? And this is a win specifically in the next 90 days. So some examples of that are, I mean, I was brainstorming in my notes as we're talking through this in the workshop, and it's like, okay, number one, and Dave Ramsey gave this as an example, one of their big things is they want to retain, 75% of their, they don't want to lay off everybody, right? They want to retain 70% of their workforce, or whatever percentage that is. Now, obviously they have a huge number of employees, hundreds of employees, like, I don't know, 500 or something ridiculous. And then they wanted to maintain 75% of their revenue. That was their part of their desired statement for the next 90 days and what a win would look like. They wanted to plan to come back online in terms of them being able to do workshops, and because they had to postpone their huge EntreLeadership event. So for us, something like, and I'm just going to shoot out a couple of brainstorming things, how do we help if every agent in the company gets one more transaction, right? Or equivalent to, as a company. And I think as we think about this, we have to look at not fixing a problem. So this was a really good note that they talked about. They said that when people tend to do things like this, or look at the creating desired future statements or what they want to accomplish, they focus on the problem. So they get into problem fixation mode. So what we need to do right now as part of this exercise is we need to take our eyes off the problems for a moment, right? And focus on where we want to be. So this is an opportunity for us to really look at where we want to be in 90 days. And that will allow us then, and once we come up with the desired future statement, to see and really hone in on the activities that we're doing as a group, individually and collectively, and ask ourselves the question, is what we're doing right now contributing to this change? Kind of like the one thing philosophy. And if not, we need to do what is. So again, for Dave Ramsey, they talked about they want to maintain business continuity and looking at their key metrics. And it's not just a goal we're talking about, it's what we actually want to achieve, which is a little bit different, and it's a short-term strategy, and it should be reasonable, and it should be appropriately aggressive. So reasonable meaning this is not where Lisa Teichner says we're going to bring on 200 agents this year, even though that may be the goal or whatever it is, right? 125 agents. Or this is where we say, this isn't the room for the ambitious goal setting, per Gary Keller. This is reasonable in the next 90 days, appropriately aggressive based on our circumstances, and what would be a win for us. So some of the additional things and thoughts and ideas that I had were regarding moving our leading indicators. So some of those key metrics we were talking about in the lower categories back to a positive or increasing trajectory. So basically stop them from going negative. You know, we might not be able to turn them positive, or we might not be able to turn all 8 of them positive, but maybe we could stop 3 of them from going negative any further. And, you know, maybe we focus on top 3 leading indicators instead of 8. Maybe it's we get our Big Island offices completed and paid for. Maybe we, you know, prepay all of our expenses for the rest of the year, which is something we've been working on already doing. And that's been Gary's direction to the regional directors. Maybe we, I mean, I had ideas again about ISA Facebook pages. I have ideas about being an online support for clients, creating a go-to website for Maui relocation when the coronavirus ends, because we're starting to see a lot more activity. How do we attract that business? Maybe we build a site around that. So these are, anyway, I'm just throwing out to you some ideas of things. And then now I want us to take, what I want to do is take maybe the next 3 to 5 minutes and have you guys work on your workbook and think about what you think might be a win for us in the next 90 days and what we want to focus on, and something that's reasonable and appropriately aggressive. And then we'll come back together and talk about it. So let's go. I'm going to give you guys, you know, we'll gauge it. I'll say 5 minutes and then I'll check in with you in a couple of minutes. So let's start.
Just for clarity, this is for our territory, right?
No. It's for the entire company. The whole company. Is that what you mean? I mean Maui. Do you mean Maui, or are you saying Big Island, Dan?
I'm saying, you know, when I look at this exercise, I've got some pretty clearly defined goals for the next 90 days about what I want to see on the west side of the island.
Yeah, so this is, so you can write that down. However, it's actually for the whole company. I want you to participate in this, not just Big Island, not just Kona. It's Keller Williams Realty Maui. So think a little bit beyond that right now, and we can come back to that. And whatever your goal is should tie into that, but really we want to look at the company as a whole right now, considering all of the information that we have. And maybe you don't have enough information, but we'll just come up with some ideas. How you guys doing? You need a couple more minutes? You guys got something, or you need a couple more minutes? Done. Hey, Shelby. I just have a question for you. I texted you, but can you tell me how many transactions did we close last month?
March.
$75.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, you guys. So let's talk. This is the brainstorming part. This is where we're going to share ideas and then, kind of hone in on that. So tell me what you came up with. What are some of the ideas you guys have?
My first approach was just overall strategic thinking in terms of what the end goal was, not necessarily the strategies to get there. Mm-hmm. And I try to simplify it as much as possible in two statements. One being increased profitability, and second being without losing agents.
Yeah, great. Okay, so increased profitability. And maintaining retention.
Yeah.
Retention was my number one thing as well. Just no loss of agents if we can help it.
Yeah.
I mean, as best as we can help it. And I think we're on the right track, obviously, with the care calls and what we're currently doing. And then maybe helping those agents be better. I think a small detail is they need to stay in touch with their database and communicate. How can we help them communicate better? On one of the Zoom calls, Lisa, at the beginning, we had some time and you gave people small little details, how to do a virtual background, how to do this. I think maybe a lot of people don't have those little tiny details of the Zoom calls and how they could be maybe more professional, not have a bunch of stuff in a messy, background or something like that. That could be helpful to help them communicate better with their client base, stay in touch more professionally.
Okay, so let's go to both of those. So with Kaylee, so Cheryl's saying a 0% attrition or retention, exit. So Kaylee, did you have an idea of when you think about maintaining retention, and just let me give you some perspective about what's normal so you know. So 30% attrition, and I'm going to use attrition and retention are two different words. 30% attrition over the course of the year is normal or on a monthly basis based on the size of our company. So right now we're at 264 something, I think 264. Say we're at 264 times 30%. That's 79 agents over the course of the year. That's 6.6 a month. So between 6 and 7 agents a month right now is normal for people leaving on a monthly basis based on attrition. Attrition being life happens. Attrition being I'm moving, I'm going out of the business. And maybe that had something to do with us or not, but usually not if it's attrition based, or I'm going inactive, but again, not because we didn't support them, because of whatever. Now, so just to give you some metrics, we have, and I don't have the numbers for this year. However, so a good goal would be to, when I look at a win over the next 30 days, would be to maintain that or reduce that, right? Maybe it's maintaining what would be a normal attrition rate and reducing that, because then we're not getting into the retention problem part of it. Because when it gets above that, oftentimes that means we have a retention issue. Like they go to another company because of whatever reason, or we didn't provide the support, or they didn't plug into it, or whatever it was. So, so as far as numbers, it would be good to have, and I love that idea that we're really looking at taking care of our people, which I think we have been very focused on. that would be a win. And Cheryl, you know, getting that down to 0, awesome. And I don't know that that's a reasonable win, right? Just because people leave because they leave, that have nothing to do with anything other than
Right.
life.
Well, I think people are going to leave, obviously, but if we can hold on to keep that from happening as much as possible, which we're all focused on, but if we can, you know, we're adding in enough to take care of the ones who are leaving, so we can keep the base that we currently have, so that
right. So we don't lose our net number of agents, is what I'm hearing. That we don't lose our net number of agents. Okay, that's great.
Right.
Okay, I like that. All right, so we don't go backwards in net agents.
Can I offer? I mean, I have a thought on that.
Yep.
I've just noticed, you know, the agents that I have spoken to that have left and went to another agency. You know, I'm just wondering if there's a. I know we send out a lot of positives about us and all that, but if there was a real clean, maybe some kind of bullet list of really all of our strengths, just boom, 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 and I don't know, some kind of flyer or something that we can, you know, maybe weekly or monthly send to our agents, and something that we can use when talking to other agents. Like, well, we could just send it off and just want to highlight that these are some of the yays about being with Keller Williams Maui.
So yeah, I mean, I love that idea, Joyce. What we can do is create a piece. We do send things out, although I love the idea of a one-sheeter bullet points that maybe say what we're currently doing, you know, during this time, what we're currently doing, and to invite them to let us know if they would like to plug into that. So we currently have, you know, I mean, maybe we talk about our Mission Possible morning call. We talk about the shift training series. We talk about the agent stimulus package program. We talk about, so yeah, we can do a little, I think that's a great idea.
Like a giveaway or an offering list.
It's just going to be an offer for them to participate if they want to.
Well, and really also cleans up the conversation. Sometimes when, you know, we're trying to express our positives, and I mean, there's reasons why people leave that are beyond that. Yet if you can, if we can, you know, text it, email it right after our conversation, like, just want to remind you the yays about being here. I think that's also good for us, because some of our agents may forget that and feel lost in the shuffle that, you know, oh yeah, we're all too busy to deal with them, and they don't know where they're going, and then somebody else offers them candy and they take it. So I think we just need to have that yay list constantly reminding people, because as much as we think everyone's reading every email, like you said, they're not. And it might be that.
Sharing our value story. I think we can get into the details of that. I don't want to get too far into details right now. I want to hear everybody else's story so we can come up with it. But I do think that, so sharing our value and story, that's another thing we can focus on. It's a win overall. Don't know how to measure that yet. It's definitely something we can talk about a little bit more.
I have something to say.
Yes, Nance.
Okay, when I'm thinking of real estate sales agents, immediately I think, you know, they want to be appreciated. They want to be supported, and they want to be encouraged. You know, pat on the back is really important when you're in sales, because every day you got to get up, every day you got to be positive, every day you got to shake the bushes, every day you're being, you know, you get rejected, and, you know, get some yeses, but you get a lot of no's. So it's you know, it has to do, I think, with, you know, self-motivation. So in order to help us self-motivate our agents, I was just thinking about, you know, when you talked about communicating and touching our browser, is that, you know, if we do in fact accomplish touching our agents through phone calls or text, phone calls better, we could create a closer bond, make them feel valued. And if our agents are happy, they will help us grow our company by sharing their positive experience. So it could be a win-win. And I don't think it needs to be every week, because we have a lot of agents. And if you're just having the ALC touching on them, that gives us 45 or 50 for, I would say that, just once a month would be fine. And, but if we start it, I think we'd be surprised at the results. I think it would be a good thing to try.
Yeah, that's great, Nancy. I think adding you guys into that mix is good. And just so you know, the leadership and executive team are already doing and have been doing the care calls. So we do go through the roster. So would be adding you guys into that mix. And so you probably wouldn't have that many people, although you certainly could. I mean, it really depends on the list that you want. Yeah, so a win for you would be making sure we and measure that and quantify that by checking off the list that we've gotten through our whole roster in the next 90 days, one time, twice, or is that what you're thinking? A couple times?
In the next 90 days, if you do it, yes, I guess it'd be twice.
Yeah, okay. Great.
So Lisa, I came at this at a totally different angle than Kaylee E. and Cheryl, which was more bottom line. Mine is like, what can we do to get to the reasonable win? And I thought that we should increase the training while they have this downtime so that they're ready to launch with the most up-to-date information so we can be able to recoup some of the dollars and such. And I think it should include the CE classes, like maybe we can have a contest, who's done with their CE classes so that that's off of their plate so that they're more productive when we are really able to mobilize. And then I also have something about contests. Can we do a listing contest? Can we do a lead generation contest? Because he who has the listings makes the sales, right?
Yeah.
Can it be part of this? The daily call, like who did 10 new lead generation calls yesterday or something along those lines were my thoughts.
Love it. Good. Those are great.
Great.
I love that. So one of the things that, and we actually are working on something not exactly like that, similar. And I don't know, Dylan, maybe you can speak to the time frame. I know you've got some other projects you've been working on and are close to done with, like the COVID booklet, the resource booklet, and the flyer that we're going to send out to everybody on the buyer, home not waiting to buy. However, Dylan has also been working on a project which has to do with gamifying. Creating there's an app where you can gamify things exactly like what you're talking about. So they can get points for completing CE classes or certain trainings. They can get points for taking listings. They can get points and then they can win a prize. So it's kind of a contest. So Dylan, do you want to share a little bit about that? What you're working on with that? It was an idea I saw another team leader do.
You pretty much described it.
Okay.
It's getting points for doing activities. It's an app that you can customize and download, and the agents who do the most activities or get the most points. We haven't discussed exactly what they win yet, or if it's just kind of a fun thing to do. And really, I was talking to another team leader who had implemented this in their market center, and he's like, "Hey, the best prize for getting the most points. Most agents don't care because their business went up so much. That was the best prize for them."
So I love it. The prize is that you earn a lot more money.
Yeah.
We can come up with something else too.
Yeah, we can, but he was just saying it couldn't hold a candle to the increase in commission that they made in that time period.
So Dylan, do you have an idea based on your conversations with Chris and exploring this app, what the time frame would be to get that up and running?
Yeah, it should be, the goal is next week.
Next week.
Finish the flyer done. The resource booklet's done pretty much. Probably that'll be the end of today. So yeah.
Awesome. So one of the things Dylan's been helping with was, I know you guys, I think I mentioned it on one of the calls that I saw COVID resource booklet that another Keller Williams Market Center had created. Thought it was amazing and brilliant, and it became a community resource booklet. So they had sent it out to their agents, and their agents could share it with clients or their database or people in the community. And it's been very, they've been very grateful, and it's been very beneficial. And it's a way to get and you could brand your own. I mean, if you want, we can make it brandable where it has your contact information on it, I suppose, but it is the Market Center's information. And it's just a resource that we're providing for the community right now. So Dylan's been customizing it to be Maui specific. And he sent me the draft last night and it looks really good. He's just working on the links and stuff. So that'll be going out. Anyway, I just wanted you to know, Sam, I mean, I love your idea. I think you're totally right. And that's really going to be a helpful thing. And if we can take those ideas and put them into this, it's a fun way for the agents to do it too. And it's tracking, and we don't have to do the tracking. It does the tracking. I mean, it tracks everything for us. So it makes it easier for us. Dylan has to set it up, but then once it's set up, you know, it's kind of a cool thing. And we can put whatever we want in there. So if you, like the ideas you just gave are perfect things to put in that. And if anybody else has any ideas, let Dylan know, and then he'll work on that next week. So that's awesome. Love that. Great.
You know, on these, my list was similar to Sam's, more like, you know, stuff. We have about, you know, I think our highest count was about 50 people on our call, right? We're averaging around 30 or 40. I mean, I think it'd be helpful if we had bullet points. If we're all going to be calling these agents, we should have bullet point specific questions to ask them, you know, after the, hey, how you doing and all that. But one of the questions is, like, what is the reason why you're not on the 8:30 call, right? Do they go, what? What are you talking about? What 8:30 call, right? Then that would lead you to, are you getting the emails from the company? Right. Oh, yeah, well, there's so many, I don't even look at those, or I don't get any, or whatever, right? We got to solve these problems to create the information, you know, get the information out there. We're only getting information out to 30 people, 50 people, whatever, 40 people. Yeah. And that with that information, then we can start streamlining the communication that we get out to them, right? Everybody only looks at this email. Okay, well, let's get rid of the other ones then. We don't have to send them those, right? And then maybe even try to come up with a schedule for the agents, right? Like this day you should be doing this time you should be doing this time you should be doing this, you know, kind of like we do, you know, time blocking, right? Yeah. Right now they're flailing, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them, they just turn everything off. They're like, I'm out. I'm not doing anything because it's all shut down, right? So I'm not doing anything. Well, they should be getting on the 66-day challenge by themselves, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm doing with my coaching people is I set up a lot of them on the command thing. I said, do one a day, you know, just do one a day, put it in your calendar and do that. Get on the 8:30 call, right? We're really heavy loaded on the front side, but, you know, the shift thing, you know, they're not doing everything every hour, but we should give them some guidance on that.
So, Latasha, can you send out to everybody in here the script for the care calls, which is the questions, and then we also have the talking points, which are bold, shift, what we talked about.
I can go through my notes and create something, sure.
Well, we had the questions, which were the care call questions originally, and then we added the talking points for the things that we want to see if they know about. Like Keone's saying, hey, do you know about the 8:30 call? Have you been attending the shift trainings? We want to ask it like a question. Another really good point, Keone, though, is, and I'm realizing is with what you guys are saying, you know, for us to be able to leverage is bold. I mean, we know that if we get more people, Nicole, is that your bird? Oh, sorry. That's so funny. Your bird agrees and likes bold. That we know that if we get more people in bold, that solves a lot of these problems for us, right? It helps with productivity, and profitability, it helps with retention, it helps with production. I mean, like, it is an answer for a lot of that. Not for everybody and not completely. However, you know, so really a big win could be getting, you know, 100 of our agents to graduate bold, to take it and graduate and do the activities that they need to do, because just that alone is going to help with where we're at today and reversing the trajectory and getting us through the slow summer, which is slow anyway normally, and better to the end of the year.
I agree on that. And my beginning part was more of a solution for us, right? What is our best way of communication? Because everybody agrees like Kaylee was saying, it's information overload, the stuff that we get, right?
Yeah.
And everybody on this is highly engaged, so you know what to go to and all that. But the regular agent just coming into it is like, where do I start, right? Or they're not getting it at all, right? We need to know that.
So yeah, I agree. So why don't we, what I'd like to do before we take a break, and I'll give you guys like a 5-minute break, is I want to come up with a statement. So let's see if we can, so what other ideas do you guys have? Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of approached this differently. Mine was 30% of KW agents attending the 8:30 a.m. calls regularly, and I think we need to start with the leadership. So I've been scrolling through who's in attendance every time because I want to know how many PC agents are attending. And there's a lot of people that I'm not seeing that are in leadership that I think if we had the conversation, so-and-so is always on the call. So, you know, the agents who are successful or leadership or people know. So I think there's a way that we could start with those, like, hey, we need you guys on there. You know, this is sort of our selling position. But I think if we had 30% of our agents on that call in the morning,
that's about 80.
I think that would be an impact.
That's doubling the attendance.
Yep, doubling the attendance. Okay. And then the other thing is, I think we should shoot for the 25% in bold, which is 65 agents.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. It solves all of the problems if we can get them into bold.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going for a little bit more than 25, right? I mean, if I'm saying 100, just because, you know,
I thought you said smaller than 65. I thought you said 50.
Well, that was originally what I said. I mean, right now I just said if we can get 100 people involved, that would,
that would be good too.
Would change the course. Although it has to be reasonable, right? So we talked about that. So again, this is Lisa's extreme goal. So yeah, 25% is actually the region's goal, and that is absolutely a reasonable goal, which would be 66. Yeah, 65, 66. So, all right. So that's one, and that's an easy one to rally behind. Yes.
I'd like to add to that. Like my first statement was more about just like the big picture, the overall goal. But when we look at some of the priorities and strategies, I think everybody's on the same page. It sounds like, whether the number is 25%, 30%. I've also tried to look at it in terms of efficient, productivity time, and bold covers this. And it's a question of whether those habits are adapted or adopted going forward. Like in a nutshell, if we're going to increase profitability, we have a shrinking market. So in the end, to keep your share, or even to get more, it's about going after more of that market share. So like increasing lead generation, like it's not all of bold, but it's a specific task within bold.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it we're seeing now is because we're dealing with less leads, less everything. To me, it comes down to training in terms of increasing our conversion rate. If there's fewer opportunities, you have to take greater advantage of the ones that are afforded you.
Yeah.
So whether an agent is sitting through all of bold or not, I think we can break it down further and say, if you've only got so much time to do things, you may consider prioritizing this, or it may even be a part of the conversations with care calls if they go further. To me, it's almost like recruiting all over again. Not just, are you on the 8:30 call? Why not? Those kinds of things. It's what is important to you in your business now. And if they're at a loss, then we make suggestions, but they may know what they need to do. They just might not know how to get there. So I think if we have ideas, just real simple bullet points on how an agent can increase their productivity by adopting 1 or 2 new habits or reinstating 1 or 2 old habits, I think that's going to go further for some people than trying to reinvent the whole wheel or relearn the whole process. So a couple of things that stood out to me, in addition to the bold and shift participation, if you don't have that much time, it might be a simple goal by identifying where their leads come from. And we've put so much into Command and Facebook. Like, to me, one of the goals that pops out is have 50% of the agents launch their first Facebook ad campaign.
No, I can tell you no. And that's been an ongoing conversation.
No, what? I'm sorry, not understanding you.
No, they haven't. Yeah, they have not.
So I think that's one of the goals we do in the next 3 months, is to have 50% of the agents launch that campaign. It's a simple, identifiable thing that would make a huge difference. And not that we'd ever get to 50%, but that's just an example of a particular habit that can move an agent forward to increase their lead generation and to conversion, higher conversion rate?
So that would be the way I see implementing something like that. I totally agree with you. I mean, I've been beating my head, it's like just having those conversations with everybody. You guys have heard me. So Robert, I think that it's having possibly even on a weekly basis over the next 90 days, that same training you had, the same training, which is the activity of actually doing the ad and launching it. And just keep that rolling. Just keep it rolling.
What I'm doing next month. So.
Okay, great.
Part of it is the activity of walking them through it, but then part of it is sharing the success of the people that have done it.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get to break, there was one that kind of dovetails onto what Kaylee was saying, and it's more around the agent experience when people are here and the overwhelm that they feel with all of the information coming at them. It might be a good project in the next 90 days to clean up our house a little bit. The online web, the office documents, that kind of stuff, so that when people go in and look for things, all the old dead links, that kind of stuff. For me, what I'm hearing from a lot of people is I get overwhelmed. Do I go to mykw.com? Where do I find it in Command? More of a better agent experience. We're all kind of dyed in the wool, folks, and we all kind of know where to find all that stuff. But new agents are kind of overwhelmed. I think Sam and Cheryl both have heard stories about that. Yeah, probably Keone too.
Yeah, I think I love the idea as far as simplifying and helping with the whole agent experience. I think that's a great one. That's something that's a great goal for our 135. And maybe to focus on, we can even add that in prior to the end of this year, later on, and definitely add it for next year is really, really kind of helping cultivate that agent experience. My concern about doing that in the next 90 days is it doesn't rely on any interaction with the agent and helping them. It's back end. So that's the only reason I think it's important. And I agree with you. I just probably wouldn't put it in this 90-day plan. I would put it in our 135. If that makes sense. So what I'm hearing, let me just kind of recap so far, and if you guys want to add to this. Yeah.
Can I add something really quick before you recap?
Yes.
So I had two things, basically. It was twofold. So the top priority that I wanted to focus on was number one, shifting the Market Center marketing strategy into Command and utilizing more social media platforms and technology, i.e. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok in terms of videos. The second prong was establishing a tier 1 digital asset, basically almost like a digital Bible for the new agents or agents in general, in terms of, 5 simple things that you can do in Command, like, make sure you have your listing, design ready to go. Make sure you have your buyer listing to go. And working with the productivity coaches, Marian and everyone, trying to come up with a simple digital Bible that helps them, once they start, reaching out to doing their lead generation, that they have this in-house 5-step process ready to go. So it's just like a click of a button, I'm off to the races kind of thing.
And I think that I like that. And I think in the promotion, it should be, though, did you know that Command can do this? Right? Instead of, you set this up, because they go, okay, well, what does that mean to me? Right? But did you know that Command can do this cool thing? I think would be more engaging. Oh, well, I want to do that. How do I do that? Right.
Right. So it would be coupled with the class of showing them how to do it, but then it would also be a digital print version so that they can refer to those steps, later on down the road. Oh, these are the 5 things that I must do to have that tier 1 ready to go. So it would be a combination of teaching and also print material that they can refer back to on a future date.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we can have all this stuff, but if they don't look at it, it's all for naught, So we have to find out our best way to communicate with the agent.
One thing I learned for the family reunion, one of the MCA's sessions, is that this is a universal issue that every market center tries to overcome, and that's what's the best way to communicate, and how do you get the agents to open that email or, read this or read that. It's not just us. It's like everybody, every MCA administrator said the same thing. How do we best communicate? How do we get that direct line? And they all came up with pretty much the same ideas. you have to do it every single way and every single option that we have, which is what I think over the last year, Lisa really told us to implement, and what we are implementing, you know, Facebook and every other way you can, because people won't read their email, but they'll see the text, or they won't do this, but they'll do that.
Yeah,
ongoing problem for everybody.
And I think less is more. You know, I mean, it's very difficult because we don't want to send out too many emails, but yet if you send out one email with everything on it, they're not going to read it. You know, it's like one of the.
I know. We just keep. It's a constant. You have to realize. I mean, this is just with technology and just in general, the nature of a market center is it's a moving thing, right? It's a living, breathing, real thing. It's constantly evolving and changing. We're constantly, and we always have to touch in different ways, and there's always going to be different people. And so it's a constant process, right? I will tell you, Latasha, you were speaking Dylan's language when you were talking about that stuff. And I think that is great for your focus, right? When we look at what you're going to be doing over the next 90 days, you personally, right? As you transition more marketing tech and focusing on that. I love what you said, and I definitely want to talk about that further. So I think, okay, so who has not shared that? Who has not shared? I would like to
Can I just say one thing real quick along those lines?
Yes.
I think we have to stop having classes for anything that we can have a workshop. They need to be doing it while it's being taught. We keep giving them information of what to do moving forward. Let's take them in and do it with them whenever that's possible.
I totally agree. I think if we just change the perspective of how we're looking at training, and that they're all workshops. Fortunately, most of KW stuff is. If it's KWU, it's definitely structured that way. However, the ones that we do in-house as a market center, I completely agree with you. I think anybody who's teaching any kind of class, make it a workshop where they're doing activities. I mean, look at the shift trainings. The shift trainings have exercises built in that people are doing, and it's making a difference during that class. During that, by the end of it, they have a plan in place on some of the things that they didn't have before. So yeah, if Robert is having them do their Facebook ads right there and they're launching them, that's an activity they're doing. If we're teaching them anything about command, they're getting in there and doing it. I think that's awesome. And yes, I would say to anybody, any of the trainings that we do, we think about it as a workshop, or, you know, workshop / mastermind, where we're working together on it and we're implementing, not just teaching. So, okay, what else? Who did not share?
I have a couple things, Lise.
Yes.
The only things, well, in addition to a lot of what you guys already said, it's really just kind of, even though the Facebook ads are important, I think there's a huge need for the basics and really kind of getting at least a 50% increase or whatever it is on people using command, because, you know, with our care calls, a lot of them don't see the value in the CRM yet, let alone being ready for the ad, you know, so that's one thing. And definitely when we have the care calls, it's been productive when I do it every week, because they're in a different place every week. And so it was definitely easier to have a Zoom with one of the care calls and go over Green Sheet, for example, which was timely. I guess they got an email from Shelby, you know, they didn't know, you know, about the Green Sheet and just the process. And so those things that everybody's talking about, going over the basics and having, you know, a simple place for them to go to and having access. You know, when I mentioned the M1, when I mentioned that there's, you know, contingency things, it's new to a lot of these agents, but once they get a handle on all of these forms and they know what's expected, it definitely makes the transaction easier.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, who else? Does anybody else have something?
Do you see any value in creating a survey for the agents? Will they answer it? You know, what's the best way you like to be communicated to? Do you like videos? Do you know, whatever the questions we come up with, maybe 3 questions or 5 questions on direct, you know, how do you like to be communicated to, right?
I asked that, Keone. Actually, I have each of the people in my care call list in my database, and I tagged them separately like that. And, you know, we ask our clients that. Why wouldn't we ask, you know, the agent? So I have that in there, and it's kind of funny. Most of them are text, some of them are Facebook Messenger, right? And some of these we're not even using. And a lot of them, they're like, if you have something to send me, send it to my email, but text me that it's there, you know? So it's all different platforms, which is kind of funny, but Facebook Messenger and text seems to be, for these agents that I'm calling, the more common, the more requested. But
Yeah,
those
and
are-
we did talk about, I agree. Who was I talking to about the surveys or sending out the survey? Okay, yeah, so Kaylee, Robert, we did talk about that.
I mean,
So
I would
that
love to
is,
see a text go out like before the 8:30 meeting just to see how many people come on because of it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I mean, like at like 8 o'clock, right? In
Right,
a half
right.
an hour, this 8:30 meeting starting by text to everybody and see what kind of result we get from it, you know? Because I agree with Rochelle. I mean, text is what people use, right?
Yeah.
They want to talk about this.
I think using the text to remind them to check for this email or something, because obviously you can't put a whole lot of information in there. But I think that's a great idea is to use to remind people.
If you could put the link in the text, that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome, you guys. Okay.
Good idea for sending out text
Anything
messages to our
else?
agents.
Oh, sorry, Errol, what's that?
I was just wondering if Twilio is a good a platform to do reminders of our meetings. I was actually thinking about that. I was going to talk to Dan about that.
Yes, it is. And yes, that is exactly what we want to be using. Yeah.
I actually use a different service with Sotheby's, and it always bumps up the number of attendees for our meetings whenever a text message is sent 2 days before the day off. and
Totally.
maybe even an hour before.
Yeah. Well, and when I send email reminders, about the team meetings, like right before, or, text though, I agree. I think we underutilize texts.
Yeah, the cool thing about text is it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're at the masseuse, which I hope you're not at right now, but if you're at the doctor, you're in a meeting, or you're somewhere else, your phone is going to ping. If you get an email, you let it sit in the junk box or in the inbox, which they're almost the same now, until you go back and look at it. You still may miss it at that point. A text, usually you're not going to miss it.
Okay, so let me share with you where I'm at right now and what I'm hearing. And I think it's okay. And I'm finding that we're not going to have a one thing, which I don't know that that's necessary that we do. I think it can incorporate a couple different things that tie in together. So here's what I've got down as based on everything you guys just said and what we might want to focus on over the next 90 days. So a huge part of it is the care calls, continuing to do that, make sure that we not only get done what we've got on our list, but maybe up it to include ALC members so that we're touching everybody in our roster probably twice over the next 90 days. And those care calls, what's going to go along with that is asking the questions that a lot of you brought up, which were great. And the other part of that somebody mentioned, and I had talked about before, and I kind of told this to the executive team, is that everybody is a coach right now. Like when you do the care calls, you become a coach. So part of what you're doing is you're asking questions, and you're also helping them to move a deal forward. What I challenged the executive and leadership team in the last meeting that we had to do was, when you're making the calls, is how do you move a deal forward for that agent? So in one of the questions you're asking, it is going to be, and somebody brought this up, what do you have going on right now? What's important to you in your business? And then ask them specifically, like, how do you get them to get a deal in escrow? Where are they at right now? I mean, if they don't have any leads, that might be problematic, but then of course it becomes clear the activities they need to focus on. But a lot of them have a pipeline. So the question is, okay, I don't have any pendings, but I've got some buyers who are interested. So it's really going to be about how do you move that buyer into escrow? Have you seen the scripts, the pivot scripts? What resources do they need? Or maybe it goes back to their coach if they have a coach. So I think, the care calls, that's all encompassing. It's questions, it's coaching. It's providing resources that they need by asking them what they need in their business and solving a problem. I love that. And part of that is going to be talking about Bold and the daily calls. So I think part of this win over the next 90 days, I love the idea of 66 agents in Bold and 80 minimum and 80 agents on the daily calls. Because if we can do that, the results of that will show up. So that's also tied into the care calls because we're already talking to them about that. And then the other things I added, so it's care calls, questions, and coaching, 66 agents in Bold, 80 agents on daily calls. And then we talked about pivoting the trainings that we're doing and making sure any training that we do is a workshop-based training, and that's action-based, which would include, you know, Command, Facebook, all that stuff. You know, we could set a goal of percentage of people integrated into Command. I think that may happen as a result of them taking Bold, them getting on the daily calls, turning the workshops into training. So maybe right now we don't focus on a number for Command integration, although I think it's a great thing for us to focus on as a whole. And the tech committee, I think, has a number for that already. And then adding this game app, which is going to take care of a lot of the other suggestions like Sam was talking about, that will directly increase productivity and profitability for the agents. So gamifying that to make it an app and make it more fun, which Dylan's working on, and then getting your input on what we want on that app. And then the last thing is really just increasing our probably the communication in the sense of the different ways we're communicating. So maybe adding text as a layer and doing that at least once a week. We don't want to do it every day. However, I think once a week where we decide what's critical in there goes into that text, which is going to be an update on training, the daily call. Pretty much what Latasha sends out on Fridays is my thought about the stuff that would go in the text, because that's really the critical things. So that's what I've got for our, you know, and I have to turn it into a desired future statement kind of verbally, but that's what we're looking at accomplishing in the next 90 days. Is everybody, how does that sound to everybody? Is everybody in alignment with that? Is there anything else you want to add? Or because, you know, we got to be careful about putting too much in there, but is there something that's more important that you think needs to go in there, or is everybody feeling good about that?
Lisa,
yes.
How much of this, I can't help but thinking about how much of what we're game planning today, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, changes in 30 days. And what I mean by that is when the announcement comes that whatever it is, that the state's going to be reopened, or the hotels get to have tourists, or people start flying in again, how much of what we've game planned gets reshuffled, not only from the aspect of, hey, we got to get these people in on the morning calls. Are the morning calls even in effect once we start meeting in our market centers again?
Yes.
What happens when we can meet face to face? I've talked extensively about the apathy that I've seen in the real estate community here, not just from KW agents, but from every agent, and how the first weeks of the crisis, we had these agents tuning in mass to our trainings, 30 or 30 plus agents on a call to get some information and education, to fast forward to a Tuesday where we do a training with 12 people. And again, it's from 30 to 12 in a short amount of weeks, because I feel like realtors have thrown up their hands and said, I'll get engaged when I've got, you know, something to look forward to, when there's some type of hope, when I have an idea of when business might start again. And just, I've thought out loud, you know, a number of times that even if the state had come out and said, hey, the hotels are going to be open on June 1st, and we're going to welcome visitors again, I thought that might be the bump that gets realtors engaged. Pick a date, May 15th, June 1st, whatever it is. I keep asking myself, what is the bump that gets the realtor back engaged? Like, oh my gosh, we're going to be back in business, or business is going to be open, or the state's going to be open, or tourists are going to be open, or something's going to happen on this date, so I better get my butt in gear. I don't know what that is, or when that happens, or if all of our game plans change because business does start to go back to normal relatively soon.
So yeah, Dan, those are good questions. I think, let me kind of address the first, and then I'll address the second. So the first being, what changes in 30 days or any time within this 90-day time frame? The only thing of what we just created that I would see would change would be Bold, because people are already in it and it's running. So getting the 25% of the people, or the 66 agents, hang on, let me go back. In Bold, that changes because we're in Bold. Everything else, our intention is we are going to see it out for 90 days no matter what. We do not change the daily calls. And in fact, we may continue the daily calls indefinitely because I don't know that they'll be necessary daily, and we'll see what happens. Although it's had such a positive impact for the agents that I would look at maybe keeping it this way indefinitely, potentially. But I think we check it for the next 90 days. We commit to this plan for the next 90 days, no matter what happens. We can pivot if we decide we want to pivot. I don't anticipate pivoting on this. I mean, the game app, once that's up and running, but we monitor that. So I wouldn't change anything to answer that question. That's my thought. I mean, you guys can chime in. The other thing I would say about going from 30 agents to 12 agents to whatever, and this is something we constantly have to look at, is what is our accountability in that? And I'm not saying, you're doing a bad job or we're doing a bad job by only having 30 or 40 people on our calls every day, but it is on leadership. So what I see is if we're not getting the engagement, it's probably one of 3 or 4 things. One is we are not providing the value. They don't see value in it. So if they don't see value in it and they don't show up, that's on us, right? Partially. The other thing is we have to get them engaged. That takes action on our part, and that takes reaching out and asking them. So if you see it drop from 30 to 12 and you're doing care calls every week, the conversation is, hey, I didn't see you on the last training. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And you find out what it is. Now, it may be that life has gotten in the way, and maybe that they can't do it because of the situation with what's going on with COVID right now. If it's an attitude and a mindset problem, it's our job to help them try to solve that by giving them resources. So that's what I would say about that. And this is a constant thing you're going to see. Just, and I've seen it over the last 5 years in running a market center. You're going to have ups and downs in that. You're going to have times where only 5 people show up for training, and you're going to have times where 50 people show up for training. And it's going to be related to who are we in conversation with in the company internally? What kinds of training are we providing? What does the variety look like? Is it timely? So there's so many moving pieces to that. I would tell you not to get discouraged, of course, and to remain positive and to do what you can do to reach out and ask them. And this is where a survey comes in is, okay, I didn't see you at the training. Is that something that you would find valuable right now? Well, maybe not. What would you find valuable right now? So we have to, but we also can't cater to every individual agent because we will go crazy doing that too. So we have to make our best decision in moving forward, and we have to look at what we can control, right? So a lot of the things I'm hearing you ask about are external forces and external situations. And yes, we want to be responsive to that. However, we have to be really careful about, looking at what we have to really focus on what we can control. And I think what we can control is what we're offering in the training. And we do have to keep reaching out more now than ever to keep people engaged. So I don't know what else to say if that's helpful. And we can talk more offline if there's anything specifically that we want to do or implement. Or if anybody has any other thoughts or ideas, and I haven't even looked at the chat box. Sorry,
I've
guys.
got some thoughts I'd like to share on that.
Okay.
I understand that there are a lot of people waiting, and I think it comes down to 2 things, and I'm going to oversimplify and then get back into a couple examples. 2 things being motivation, and the second thing, motivation meaning the agent's motivation, and where it lacks engagement on our part. And when it comes to everybody adopting this kind of hold pattern, I think one of the things that we as individual salespeople and we as agents need to recognize is this might be the new normal. It's an excuse when everyone sits back and says, oh, it might get better in 3 months. It might get better in 6 months. You talked earlier about fear. I mean, my fear is that this is the new normal. And if we don't have enough food to go around, I want to make sure that I've got a plate full for myself and for my family. So if people aren't recognizing that this might be the new normal, part of it might be up to us to actually incite a little bit of panic, at least enough in panic to induce action. Because I don't think waiting is the solution. So I think that the more we get people to recognize that this might be the new normal, that you might have to work harder, work faster, work smarter to succeed, I think that's a necessary thing that we need to reach out and convince people of. Because the worst thing that's going to happen is you increased your market share. It went back to a previous normal, but you've got more to work with now. So I'd much rather us and myself err to work harder to create more for a future that might look like where we are right now. And if the error is I positioned myself to grab more business in the future by doing that, that's an error that I'm willing to make right now. And I don't know if enough people are looking at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's up to us to push them a little bit as their leadership to help kind of slap them out of it if we can. However, that said, some people are going to go that place. Some people are going to, and we're only going to be able to do so much. And we can't spend too much time. Jim Rohn says, what's my favorite? He's my favorite philosopher of all time. And he has a saying where he talks about you can lead 1,000, but you can't carry 3 on your back. And I think for us right now, right? So on the flip side of that, right, you can lead 1,000 people. We can help the people that are going to get on board and get with us, and we can push them some, but we can't carry 3 people on our back. So if we've got people that are dragging us down, that, you know, there's going to be a fine line where it gets to the point where we're like, okay, you know, we're going to cut you loose. Sorry, good luck. I hope you make it. So we kind of have to guide that as we do these care calls, and that's kind of our job too. And Dan, I know you are seeing that apathy, and you're seeing some people, and you're seeing some of it outside of the company, right, on the people you're working on recruiting. And I think that's a little bit different in how that gets handled because they don't have the context of it all. But you know, at least for our own people. And anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for that. And I think we do see some of that. So lastly, I just want to point out, Sam says people I spoke to saw the email, didn't know what it was about, or they had something else to do. Dylan, okay, so Dylan put the questions from Colette, the connection script questions that we had started using for the care calls. So make sure you look at those. Those are good. And then we can add our own. Some are on the shift spreadsheet. The agents don't seem to know what bold is. We need a sentence description. So why don't we ask Molly to do a video and send it about bold? That's an easy one, Latasha. She can send a video, talk about what bold is, give a little quick 30-seconder, and we can send that out. Or maybe there's something, a video on the website we can send out to everybody. Other KWRM highlights. Okay, great. So we've got some good stuff in there where you guys are talking about calls. I'm all in for dealing keepy calls after we keep the stay-at-home order. Okay, so Dan, hopefully that was helpful. I didn't mean to be to shut you down or anything. I was trying to be productive and just, you know, as far as perspective.
No, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So why don't we take a break and let's take 5 minutes, or you guys get a snack or something. And then I want to get to, I'm going to go with what I just said for now. If you want to change anything or add anything, let me know, but that's what I'm going to kind of go with for now, what we just talked about. Okay. We're going to take 5 minutes and then we'll come back.
Lisa, can I ask you a quick
5
question?
to 8 minutes. Yeah.
Bob Wills joining the team. The team office manager's asking for copies of our onboarding paperwork. And I just wanted to make sure with you that it's okay if I send all of it, our term sheets and everything else to them.
Yeah. Do they want Bob's or do they want our general office?
They want our general, they want samples so they can get familiar with that paperwork is what she asked.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I have
you.
no problem with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go grab something. All right, let's start to regroup. DJ LT, where's our music? Yeah, DJ LT.
I'm looking for some rocking out videos. To
I
turn
love it.
break
No,
down.
it's okay. Okay, I'm gonna go through. I gotta pull up all these other notes. So many notes. Okay.
Lisa, it's Rochelle.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I have to jump off at 12. I've got to do an HIR education real quick. It should only be half an
Okay.
hour, and I'll try and jump back on.
Okay.
You guys are still going,
Cool.
but yeah, in case I step
Thank you.
out, that's where I went.
Thank you. I'll be like, Rochelle, hello.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things while you guys are kind of getting back, that Dave Ramsey says, and he was talking about this really in regard, a couple of things, but one was in regard to being in the green for businesses that are in the green right now and that are strong, to remember that strength is for service. And it's just a good reminder that as we, and I think we're pretty good at this, but just in general, that we're always service minded and service oriented, and in regards to how we care about our people and our agents and the company, and even community and outside. But strength is for service was kind of a cool, just a little quote that I got from that, which I liked. And then another positive thing they kind of talked about was mindset and how people are working together to pull through as a community. I mean, even like, obviously you have the fear and doom and gloomers, but then you have the people that are really strong and have a great mindset about it. And just a reminder that people are capable of extraordinary things when their backs are against the wall. So I like that. All right, so we got through step 2. Let's go to the next step, step 3, which is define supporting objectives, the targets we must hit for the desired future to occur. And some of this we already kind of went through in specifying. So sorry, let me just go back and add this into the sheet. Okay. So defining supporting objectives, which is step 3 in your workbook. And it says supporting objectives are the targets you must hit for your desired future to occur. So establish quick wins, cut costs, shift resources, serve your customers, maintain team morale, assess risks and threats, and define KPIs. So this is what so Dave Ramsey kind of came up with their supporting targets based on, or supporting objectives based on their desired future statement. And they basically did this bullet point. So the bullet points supported what they said that they wanted to accomplish. And then these were the categories that they use, which were quick wins, cut costs. You know, how do we establish quick wins? How do we cut costs? How do we shift resources, serve the customer, maintain team morale, assess risks and threats, and define KPIs. I kind of like what they use. So, I mean, we could use those or we can come up with our own, but basically our, statement has to do with the care calls, the questions and coaching, the 66 agents in bold, the 80 agents on the daily calls, creating the workshops around the training classes, which includes command integration, the app, which has like contests and things of that nature that they can get points for. So we can use some of these or we can create our own. And let me see what other notes I have around this. So 5 to 10 things you can do in your business to make your statement realized. So for us, it might be allowing, well, how do we, okay, so I kind of gave some ideas, like when I was kind of looking at what can we do. So a quick win, for example, if we said establish quick wins, we would say okay, what can we do in the next 24 to 48 hours that's going to get us on the path to accomplishing our goal of any of those things that we mentioned, which really is getting the agents in bold, getting the care calls done, getting the agents in bold, and getting people on the daily calls. So tell me if you like these. I guess the first thing we could do is start with what Dave Ramsey came up with, which are pretty good for supporting objectives. And we don't have to have that many either. So I'm just giving you an example. Establish quick wins would be, again, for us to, what can we do in the next 24 to 48 hours? Because he says if it's beyond that, it's not really necessarily a quick win. Cutting costs, which is something we're already doing. And the things that we're talking about that we added don't cost us any money. So that's the benefit of what our plan includes in the next 90 days is there's no money involved in that. I mean, there may be, because ultimately we're going to be reimbursing people for bold, but it's really not within the next 90 days. And we would only do that when they have a closing. So that doesn't really cost us any money. I don't think, Dylan, what we're setting up on the app, but we can talk about that later. I'm not sure if there's a cost to that. So, and then shift resources. Basically I'm looking at shifting resources being, okay, everybody on the executive and leadership team, we're going to go ahead and make the calls. We're all going to participate in this. And then serve your customers, which is our agents. So to just be very clear, our customers are our agents, which I think you all know, but that is who our customers are. It is not the person buying and selling real estate. It is the agent who's helping the person buy and sell real estate. Maintain team morale. I think that also goes along with this. With what we're doing. So by getting agents to participate in bold, bold is great for mindset, bold is great for morale, although people can get a little overwhelmed. And then the daily calls help with that. So what do you guys like for supporting objectives? Do you like these? And then assessing risks and threats is what could go wrong, or what could happen that we have to be prepared for. We don't, like what happens if we don't get that many people in bold? Well, that's going to decrease that future income by X. So, or what could possibly get in the way of people taking bold, or people getting on the daily calls, or people, participating in what we're doing. And then the KPIs are key performance indicators. What are the key performance indicators? What are our metrics that we're going to be following to determine whether we're hitting our goals or not? It's pretty easy. I mean, for bold, Latasha can send out, we get the roster every day, so we can see if people signed up that we talked to, for example. So those are the ones that I thought were pretty good. I don't know how we might improve upon those, but I'm certainly open to ideas, and maybe there's something that's more specific to what our goal is. Does that make sense? Supporting objectives.
Quick question on the document, Lisa.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if I'm the only one having the issue, but when I typed in the very first box in step 2, it copied it to every other box.
Yeah, it happened to me too. You are not the only one having that problem.
And then it deleted everything.
So here's what I would do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep all of that in the carried over box, and I'm just going to keep writing notes in the same. I'm just going to keep writing notes in the box. And hopefully I won't run out of room. And if I do, I'm going to have to put it on a Word doc.
Are you okay if I print this out and handwrite in the box?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what
I have the same issue. It's carrying over. I didn't use this in the call. I used my note. I just made notes. So now I'm using it with you. And yeah, I have the same problem. It's copying it. I don't know how to fix that. Okay. So what do you guys think on supporting objectives? Do you want to go with those, or you want to add any, or you want to remove any or change any? Sorry, chat box. Latasha, for the bold statement, please refer agents to the flyer. It has and will continue to be in the week at a glance. I'll also recycle the video that Molly already created. Okay, great.
Are we talking about these pre-entered objectives?
Yeah, I'm looking at the ones, so to define the sporting objectives, those 7.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey, that's what they created as supporting objectives for their company.
I think communication should be on that. You know, increasing or bettering communication with the company.
So, okay, so improving communication.
Yeah, something to that sort of thing.
Okay, what else?
Like we discussed that quite a bit, so.
Yep. I mean, that's part of our actual goal, although we can certainly put that as a supporting objective, because the supporting objectives are what we're going to kind of look at to remind us, like, okay, what are we doing that it's to keep us on track so that we're only focused on our 90-day plan and the supporting objectives for that.
A quick question in terms
Yeah.
of assess risks and threats. So if we're looking at 90 days, are we going to limit what we consider a threat to, let's call it the COVID-19 induced economy? Or are we talking about our overall threats, like we were talking before about retention and things like that?
I think we should be looking at the threats as they will be in the next 90 days, which do include some unique factors like that. The tricky part about that, we could still put it as a risk and threat. We just obviously can only do so much with that, right? Like we have to look at what we can control based around that. Certainly having the knowledge and information to track it, to know what's going on and continue to give updates around that. Yeah, that could be a threat. I mean, if our business remains shut down or things change, that could affect the agent's ability to execute this plan. And let's go into a little more detail about that. So let's go through, let me just go through some of the additional notes, and that may help because he went through each of those items individually. And let's talk through that a little bit more. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. So establish quick wins. So Dave Ramsey's 90-day was maintain business continuity, right? So they mentioned that they want to retain 70% of their employees and 75% of their revenue. So their big thing for 90 days was maintain business continuity with key metrics, and basically it's what they want to achieve, right? So maintain business continuity, and then they have these things to help them monitor that. So one of them, the quick wins, is the question we ask is, what are some low lift actions that we can create under quick wins? So meaning, what can we do quickly? And the thing he said was, if it takes more than for us to get it done during this week. I mean, I said 24 to 48 hours, but he said, if you can't get it done in this week, it's too much. So what would a quick win look like? So an example that we've already talked about, I think, is we send a survey to the agents, right? Which we've talked about. What do they need in order to hit their goals? We can get that done within a week. We can send a survey, we can ask them questions, we can get that back, we can get suggestions. So that's one example. So establishing quick wins. We can figure out ways that we can have our S's and C's, or our C's in the company, help contribute to people getting integrated into command. I mean, maybe people that are having success in doing that, we can have them help other agents, or kind of create a plan that we can accomplish over the week. So those were some of the examples on established quick wins, and the specific question is what you have on step 3, which is, what are some low lift actions we can take to create momentum? So let's answer that question, and then maybe we're going to go through their strategies anyway, and then we can add our own. So let's just go through their strategies and do the first exercise. I think maybe that's the easiest way to do it. So what are some low lift actions we can take to create momentum towards our desired future? What's a quick win for us based on the plan that we just created? Care call, you know what, I'm going to put this in our chat box so you guys have what I'm referring to. Okay. So when we look at this plan over the next 90 days, what would be considered a quick win for us? What's a low lift activity or something we can do? And low lift being, it's not a huge project, but that's going to help us get to this goal, this desired future.
More agent engagement. We've talked about Bold, we've talked about Shift, we've talked about the 8:30 calls. those are mechanisms that are already in place. It's just more about getting participation increased.
Okay, so getting more participation, and then the next step is to talk about who's going to do it and how we're going to do it, right? So increase agent participation, which is part of the goal. So in the next, week, 7 days, we're going to increase agent participation on calls. And okay, so on calls and in bold. Okay, so hold on one second. Okay, so let's see. Nancy says, "Oh,
my husband was
yeah,
vacuuming. What was yours doing?"
He's putting groceries away and talking to the cat. I mean, I love that he's talking to the cat. Are you kidding me? But okay, so continue to educate the agents to add work in command. Yes, good. Latasha says, sending a text to advertise Debbie being on the Mission Possible Tuesday. Perfect, Latasha. So that is a specific action that we can do that can get us to a quick win on our goal. Because if we send a text to advertise to Debbie being on the call Tuesday and we have more people on the call on Tuesday, we've hit it, right? We've gotten a quick win. So that's great. I love that. Thank you. Okay.
So then, a real off-the-wall question, kind of suggestion. Yeah. Before we talked about games and incentivizing things, we've talked about bold participation, the phone call participation. Is there maybe a way to link it? So, for example, if we get whatever our goal is, 80 people on the call, we're going to give away one free bold admission. Does it make sense to do simple things like that? Because it doesn't cost us a lot. We're reinvesting in the office, but that's a way to get more people there, not just to show up, but make sure they get other people to show up to participate.
Totally, I love it. So when we send that text, we'll say, and if we get 80 people, if 80 people are on our call, we will, or do we want to make it a little less? Maybe we want to stair step it up because that's a lot. That's a jump to double. Maybe we want to say if we get 60 people on the call.
Yeah, whatever the goal is, as long as it's getting us there faster than we're going,
totally.
And as long as there's incentive in addition to, I'm just going to learn more.
I love
Small
it.
prize, but people still respond.
Yep. So we'll let people know that. I'm happy to do that. We can do that.
So
yep, we'll give away
if you get that number, one person that's on the call is going to win a free bold. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
I like it.
I like it. Okay, good, you guys. So any other ideas of what other ideas for quick wins?
How about some sort of contest for the Facebook ad, like the Facebook ad that gets the most responses or something wins?
The most leads from a Facebook ad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or who can come up with the most, who can come up with 5 Facebook ads or something to tie that in because we're trying to get listings.
Okay.
First one to get 5 Facebook leads.
I would be cautious on creating too many contests because people might get confused with all the contests, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the app is going to have its own scoring system, and that can be one of the tracking items is leads for Facebook ads.
I'd also be
and
careful
then
on doing something that's specific on Facebook ads and leads, because with that, what you're measuring then is someone could spend a lot more money really quick that has more money, and then someone's like, well, I don't really have a strong marketing budget. If I put out $100 on a Facebook ad, I'm going to get those leads a lot quicker than someone that might only have 10 to 15 bucks to put out there.
Very true.
So it could just be rewarding for the implementation of doing the Facebook ads, launching Facebook ad campaigns.
Right. Yeah, that'd be better.
Okay.
Can they be rewarded on this app for coming to the 8:30 classes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely putting that on there, and the shift trainings. Okay. All right. Those are good. Yeah, and bold, of course. So then the next question is, what do we need on page 4 to accomplish these quick wins that we're talking about and who will own each project. So we've talked about increasing the agent participation on the calls and in bold, and then, you know, maybe doing a contest around that. We want people to be launching their Facebook ads, and we could do something around that over the course of the next week. So who wants to lead that, I guess? And what do we need to make that happen? What do we need to make that happen? These two things.
Maybe a co-hosted class or Zoom meeting on how to set up the Facebook ad. You know, two people could kind of co-host it and set that up. And
So Robert, is there a way for you to look up and find out who's having really good success doing that? That can be a guest on that with you?
Yes, I think I have somebody in mind. So
Great. So if we can get an agent that's actually doing that, that would be great.
my thought was a non-agent. He's worked in our office before. I think you know him, Boz, right? See if I can get
Yeah, I don't want it to be Boz, only because he's not working it in command, really. He's really not doing it in command. He's been doing it outside of command using Follow Up Boss. So I think he may be doing more in command right now, but also I would rather it be an agent that's doing it.
Okay.
An agent that's doing it on their own, that's not a marketing person. Like Boz is a marketing guy and he's not a licensed agent. I would rather it be
Adam
a licensed
Miller's
agent.
doing it.
Adam Miller is?
I think Adam Miller is doing it.
So maybe reach out to Adam Miller, see what he's doing and the success, what that looks like and how they're doing with leads.
Todd have a ton of good ads coming out right now.
Who does? Who does?
Todd does.
And Dean has a ton. I get them on. They pop up on my feed all the time. His paid ads.
Yeah, he also has an admin doing that for him.
Right.
I mean, what I would love to see is an agent that's doing it, just because I want the agents to feel like they can just do it. And they don't have to pay somebody to do it. It's easy enough to do themselves. They'll take the time to do it.
Yeah, Adam Miller just lives right over there.
Okay, maybe can you reach out to him, Robert?
Sure, I can.
And if that's working for him, put something together over the next week that will promote and have people attend.
Yeah.
And
Can
then
that be a workshop?
It will be a workshop. You will be creating that ad in the class.
Cool.
What if you had a competition within the class that you could take a vote on all the ads that were created, and then that group decides which one is the best?
You know, I look at paintings and somebody might like a painting and somebody might not like a painting.
I think if we can get them to the workshop and they're doing it and they launch it, like,
good enough.
Good for them. Okay, what else around? So great. I think we accomplished that one as a quick win. And then what about bold to increase agent participation on our daily calls and in bold?
Sorry,
I know we're doing that through CARES. Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute going back to the
Okay.
Facebook thing, you know, and it's all about the marketing, right? If you put just learn how to do this Facebook ad, but if you say 5 easy steps to create an ad or whatever, because there's not that many steps to do it. Once it's set up, it's very easy, you know? So maybe we can count how many, Robert, right? And go the 3 easy step, 4 easy. I mean, it's because it's very easy. But that would be the headline, right, of it or so.
Yeah.
Set up your Facebook ad in 5 easy steps and spend, and maybe, for less than $50 or something like that. And maybe you can just do that and they can spend more if they want.
Yeah, I can go back through the Loom video that I created on how to do this. And
okay.
That video is only 5 minutes long, so.
Great. Okay, so that'll be what you're teaching. Yeah, I like the idea of the number of easy steps.
Learn how to set it up in 5 minutes, right? I mean, if
5 minutes, 5 easy steps, 5 minutes,
in
$5.
Minutes,
No.
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
I think that could be
for $5.
Well, if I play the video
for $50.
If I play the video and nobody asks any questions, then it's 5 minutes. If I don't play the video and I teach the class, it's 2 hours.
Right, exactly.
OMG. Okay. All right. So what about for increasing agent participation on the calls and in bold? I mean, I think we're going to get through the care calls, although we won't do that. That would be I don't think that's a quick win because it's a little longer than it would take the week. What would be a quick win way? Okay, well, we talked about that. So we're going to offer a bold, quick win way to get people on the calls is to offer the bold scholarship. I like that. And then that'll also get people in bold. So we got a good quick win, you guys, right? Everybody feel good about that? I like it.
What about the survey?
Sending out the survey.
I think that's one of the biggest.
Yeah. Okay. So Latasha, can you send me and Dylan the old survey questions that we did the last time so I can just look at those? It was only a 5-question survey. I might use the same one or I might tweak it a little bit with the verbiage because of COVID.
Sure, I'll resend it now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natasha.
Okay. All right, survey.
Talk about it on the morning call and say, hey, we're sending out this survey. Everybody respond. I'd like to get the responses by tomorrow or Monday, whatever day you say, you know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, perfect, you guys. Great. Okay, let's look at the next supporting objective. So that was the first one, quick wins. The next one is cut costs. So what expenses can we cut? So this is really for you guys to, and I don't know if you're going to have the answer to this, and just know that me and Shelby and Christy and Colette are really combing through and scrutinizing that. And I don't know if the ALC has looked at the reports, but off the top of your head, or is there anything that you guys can think of that, and this could be for the agents too, right? Although right now I'm looking at, you know, as a company, is there anything that you can think of that, or that you know of, the answer may be no, that could be an expense or something that we should look at or that we're using, and especially for you guys that are on the executive team that are using a lot of admin related resources. I've asked you before, but is there anything that you guys see right now that we can cut that you're using that you don't necessarily need, or that you're using 2 different systems for, or, you know, anything that anybody has suggestions on?
Did Broker Kit already get discussed? Moving over to MD.
Yes, it did get discussed and it is being cut. Yeah, we're gonna be working in Command MC.
Not related to the market center, but I think one of the things that we could do for our agents to cut costs is, I know a lot of agents are paying for services that Command does, and they just don't know it. So I don't know what the direction is for that, but.
It's part of the care calls. It's almost like it's a tech audit. It's the first conversation about a tech audit, which is, what are you currently spending money on that you may not need to do? Or are you using Command? I mean, if they're not using Command, then they have no idea. So if they're not using Command, it's getting them into the Command training, so that they can see that they can cut expenses. So, I mean, you're right. They have to know what the Command training does. I will tell you, I do it for some of our top 20%. When we do our coaching calls, I'm having that conversation, and then also for recruits who are spending money on things that Command does. So it's the coaching. I mean, for you, it's your coached agents. It's the conversation there. For the brokers, it's the conversation they're having with agents as they're doing transactions. I mean, I think it should just be integrated as a part of, you know, what we're asking people.
There are a couple of Command in the 66-day challenge that are very short, like 5 minutes, but they're really cool, right? How to do something. And if we played that like at an 8:30 call to kind of show them, like, this is all it is. You know, people are intimidated by the 66-day challenge, right? Oh my God, like I got to watch they think it's a whole day thing every day, right? They don't realize how short some of these videos are. And it's something that will blow their mind on how, 1, easy it is to do, and 2, how effective it is once you learn how to do it, right? So maybe we pick something out that you know is a cool thing and play it on our 8:30 call to kind of get them used to it, right? They'll see the Marty Miller logo and all that stuff, right? So when they go to YouTube, they know, okay, that's the one. I remember that logo and all that stuff, right? Because they play throughout, you know, his logo is up there, right? All the 66-day challenge for the 3.0 look all the same. Just the title is different. So kind of getting them used to seeing it, right?
So I like the idea of adding a command related something video, short video on the daily calls. We just have to get the logistics on that working. I haven't been able to play videos. So I don't know, Latasha, maybe through your research of being able to play music, it works for videos too, and we can do it that way. If so, that would be great. Keone, just send me what you think is a good short video that maybe addresses that as far as where they can see that they'll be able to cut costs or something that's quick and that's going to entice them to dig deeper.
Right. I'll talk to Robert about that offline, and we can
Here's
figure
a
out something.
suggestion. Almost everybody I've talked to at some point has used Adobe Acrobat, which is the pay-for service, not Adobe Reader, but Acrobat. You can edit PDFs. You can do everything that software does in Command now for no extra charge, right? So
yeah,
it's $90 a year right there. I mean, it's
cool.
not huge, but it's $90 a year.
Cool. Okay, great. Anything else on expenses? Okay.
Are we still talking about the company or agents?
Both. I mean, primarily if we can just talk about the company right now, that would be great.
I mean, if you really wanted us to look at it, we'd have to look at the itemized list of expenses, right? And then we could all go like circle ones we think could be adjusted,
yeah, I mean, if
right,
you,
or whatever.
we can get you those. I mean, you can look at the budget for sure if you want. I'm just saying, is there anything you're using that you question the need for, or that you don't use, frankly? Like if we're paying for something that you guys aren't using, tell me that too, because then we just get rid of it, you know, for now.
Well, if we don't use it, we may not know that we
It's true.
Hence the
Good
itemized
point.
list, right? We could go
Good
through it
point.
and go like, what is this, right? In the itemized list. So
Okay.
I think it might be helpful if we're trying to cut areas, right?
Right. So here's another, so the next question is really, what resources can we shift to respond to more immediate needs related to our desired future? You know, which is the bold and getting agents engaged. And ultimately the goal for that is so that we can increase productivity and profitability and keep expenses down, right? So, you know, a couple ideas that I had were related to, so the ALC, we already talked about that. One of the ideas was about adding you into the care calls. So I think we already discussed that. The other thing as far as the ALC is, or anybody in the company, is who's in your sponsorship tree? You know, who have you brought into the company, and making sure that you and all the agents really within the company are touching the people that they sponsored. You know, they have a vested interest. It makes sense for them to do that. And, you know, are they reaching out to them? So that was one of the ideas that I had as far as shifting to things that they really want to be focused on now. And then the other thing, which I mentioned, is maximize the people we currently have to shift agents, or to shift to helping agents get an additional transaction. So no matter what we're doing in our daily roles, the priority is going to be, how do we get this agent that we're talking to right now to get another deal going? So we all become coaches. I mentioned we're all business consultants, and we're all providing service to the agents. So that one, and then the other thing I thought of was Lavette getting into the coaching, which I know, Nicole, you've been working with her on. So I think that's going to help, because if we can really get that coaching program up and running on the Big Island, that's going to help those agents. That was another thing I thought of. And an additional one is Errol is really looking at, I know you're very focused on getting the office together and administrative and logistics things. And I would challenge you to think of, Errol, what else, and you're helping make money by the fact that you're leveraging Dan, and you're helping administratively, but also, is there anything that you could be doing that you're not doing right now because of your skill set, Errol? Like when we had kind of talked about it a little bit before, maybe blocking in some time for you to do some agent consultations. Look at how you can help them with support and technology that you've learned, you know, more one-on-ones. I'm not sure if you're doing any of that now, or if Dan's doing all of that, but I was kind of looking at that too.
Actually, haven't done any of that. At least the time that I've been with the company now, almost 2 months. So
Okay.
I'm thinking about expanding my role and what things I've been doing. Most definitely, it's just that I've just been tied up with some of the things that Dan and I have been working on.
Sure.
So,
So
but I
maybe
do
you
have
guys
some
can
ideas
talk
on
about
how
that. Okay.
I can help out the company in making things a lot more efficient, a lot more productive on this end.
Great.
I've got those actually lined up on a spreadsheet that I've developed. So those are the kind of things I want to talk to Dan as we move.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys can kind of talk about that and look at, especially over the next 90 days, is there anything else that you can be doing that's going to pivot to have you one-on-one support the agents again to make sure, because they're, even Big Island, right? We're new and they're coming in and they're having challenges and we're supporting them. And also, making sure that they're implementing some of the things that we're teaching them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do call our agents, at least the ones who reach back to me, because they're a little difficult to reach right now because we can't be in front of them, face to face with them. But for the agents who I've been talking to, they are appreciative of the fact that I do reach out to them and I help them out with some of the, they may be small challenges, but at least I'm there to support them. So, I only concentrated on the Kona agents. I haven't really talked to any of the Hilo agents. I have in the past, at least initially during the first few weeks, but of late, just primarily the Kona agents. So they may have a question about zip form. They may have a question about DocuSign, things of that nature. So, I help them as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it would be good again as far as the communication goes with the agents, because we don't have really that administrative support in Hilo. I mean, until we eventually hire that, that's helpful too. Maybe you can talk to Rochelle and Kaylee about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what they need or additional administrative resources or, okay, cool. So those were just a couple of ideas. What other ideas do you guys have about resources and what we're currently doing and how maybe we can shift to respond in addition to what I've mentioned to more immediate needs related to the desired future we've talked about?
Lisa, you talked a little bit about messaging and communication. I know that this KW, the tech ambassadors in NorCal, Hawaii, utilize a specific chat channel. And I kind of think about it a little bit outside the box is, could we do that with our agents so that instead of having it go to an email box where it's going to get lost in a whole bunch of other email, they use a channel or an app called Slack, and it sends channel direct messages inside. And we could at least do it with the leadership team and try it and see how it works, and then possibly expand it from there. So just an idea.
Yeah, you'll have to share more with me about that. I'm not really sure how that works or what that would look like.
There's a bunch of Keller Williams on Slack already. Yeah. So yeah, I'll talk to you.
Okay, let me know. Anything else that we didn't talk about? Okay, so let's go on to what can we do to show our customer, meaning our agent, how much we care about them? And is there anything that we can do for free? So obviously the care calls are a no-brainer to really reach out and talk to them. So what else can we do? So a couple of things that they mentioned, I'll just kind of give you some background on the notes that I took, is they talked about unity. They said unity is essential to moving forward fast, and we want to be going against fragmenting. So the more we can be unified and the more we can be doing things as a whole to show the core and the group of the people of our agents that we care, the better. Connectivity, communication, we've already talked about that. How do we keep our finger on the pulse of everybody's morale and where it's below surface level, so that if somebody says, I'm doing fine, thank you, that we dig deeper. So a couple things we integrated, and this is one of the reasons that I mentioned it, and we're doing it tonight at 5 o'clock. We should probably send out a text about that, is a virtual happy hour. So that was one of the ideas I came up with during this that I know other places have done. So, something that's a little bit more relationship oriented in a meeting versus, business, like on our daily calls that we do. So that was one of the ideas that I came up with. What else do you guys have on to be able to show them that we care about them and how much we care about them right now? What's going to show them that? And what can we do for free?
Keone had a great idea. It was like the happy hour, the virtual happy hour, but it was a virtual online bingo. I thought that was fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think if we do those happy hours, we need to do something with them instead of just all sitting there kind of, because it'll turn into a real estate talk as most of our gatherings do, right? Because we all have that in common. But, the Dylan scavenger hunt is super fun, right? Because it's stuff you have around, right? And it might be something that we, I think we should always have some kind of game. And it's easy. The scavenger hunt is super easy because you just go look for stuff around your house, right? And it gives you something to do and laugh about and talk about, and people are showing their stuff. And I've had Zoom calls where it's just free flow, right? And
yeah.
There's a lot of lulls, right? Because people are like, okay, what do we talk about next? And and it was I had a family one. And, it's diverse, right? We have kids, we have adults, we have grandparents and all that. And so the commonality isn't there. I just think it might turn into some real estate talk if we do that, if we just let it go free flow. You know what I mean?
All right. I'll try to come up with some kind of a game.
The scavenger hunt's fun. It's easy.
Yeah.
And people who want to do it, they can just sit there and look.
And free. Go get toilet paper. Okay, I love it. So,
Lisa, I got an
okay,
idea
so
for you
what
might
else?
like.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Rochelle and I were on a Zoom call. First time we'd ever done anything like this, and we weren't really joining to be participants at first. But a friend of ours is one of the UH Hilo Performing Arts professors.
Cool.
And so they get first-time plays and scripts and other things. So we did a Zoom play reading yesterday.
Yes. Okay, would other people really want to do that? Because I'll do that
That's
all day.
right up Lisa's alley. She's on board with that one.
Yeah, well, it involves a lot of people because if you've got 20 cast members and these other things going on, it can be fun.
What play did you read?
For like famous movies that we know, right? So
Yeah.
Something like that.
The play was a contemporary version of Othello, but basically for teenagers.
Okay, cool. I love it.
That's definitely.
Yeah, I love that idea.
You can also do an open flow, but have like some really cool questions on, like one of the questions, I did this with my family and I had some questions. One was, if you had a boat, what would you name it? So there's all these like odd questions that get conversations going and people talking.
I love it. I think that's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, so we got the virtual events. What else? What else can we do to show people that we care?
I mean, I think as a company, we're doing a lot of things already,
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you feel like we're hanging out pretty good in there right now, then that's great. I mean, we don't need to add, but I just kind of like to look at.
I mean, we have
a
lot of engagement, right? Our company has a lot of engagement that others don't. With the 8:30 call to shift, and everything else, you can get into Ignite if you want, and all that kind of stuff. We have a lot of opportunity there. I think we're doing well on that.
Yeah, I think to your point, the more we can, and Latasha, maybe you can help me get a little bit better at this, help us get a little bit better at this after the daily calls. When we send out, because we have so many people that aren't on the daily calls. However, if we send out like the scripts, or if there's an item that we can send out, and I don't want to give them all the information about what happens in the meeting, but maybe a couple bullet points with any resources that we talk about or share in the chat box, we can send that out to the rest of our agents. So at least they know we've talked about it and this is what we're providing and we're there for them, even if they're not there on the call. So I think that will help. Maybe let's expand that a little bit with stuff we're already doing and sharing that with the rest of our agents. And then at least they know it's there and available and, they have it.
I think one of the things we can also work on, depending on what the activity, what the event is, how we're doing it, but part of it, I think, comes down to the perspective and leadership itself and what that means, in the sense that if we're a team, if we're going through this as a team and we're all invested in this together, and not necessarily leadership or somebody else telling something, this is how you do it. It's more a question of, we're in this together. This is how we're going to get through it together. This is how we're going to survive. I think if we get more buy-in from a mutual participation and a mutual benefit with mutual effort, whether you can quantify that or not, that's always been the way that teams have thrived together. That's always the way that small businesses have thrived together. So I think the more we can get people invested, that we are tied to their success, not by profiting off of it, but by doing it with them. I think that's a vital part of motivating people and helping them recognize their role in success as well, because it's more immediate to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, being a part of that with them, and which is a reason that leadership takes Bold. We participate in Bold. I mean, we do it for ourselves, and then we do it to support them and to be right there along with them, and kind of put our money where our mouth is, and do the things that we're telling them to do, and lead by example. Great, cool. Okay, so let's move on to assessing risks and threats. So the question around that is, what happens if this lasts longer? How long might it last? What's our game plan? What are the worst case scenarios? And then the additional part of that is, what is our phase contingency plan? So what happens if this situation and if this new normal that we're operating in right now does last longer? And to kind of Dan's point in having that conversation is, we don't know, and how long can this go on running the way that we're running? And in the event that it does last longer than 90 days, 120, 180 till the end of the year, I mean, who knows? What is the worst case scenario? And then what's our contingency plan? So, and this is something, I mean, you guys will have some level of input, but really this is a conversation that Colette and Shelby and Christy and I, and potentially the core group will be having. Well, we've already been having it, but the core group, we have a core group meeting coming up. So, and of course for us, when we look at the worst case scenarios, okay, our monthly expenses start exceeding our company dollar income. And what's the plan for that? And how can we support that? And what is the contingency plan? So I don't know if you guys have any. I'd be happy to hear if you have any ideas about what that worst case scenario might look like, and also any ideas for like a phase contingency plan and what that might look like.
I haven't thought at all about contingency plan, but I have thought about what happens if this rolls back through with the flu in the fall, right? So
yeah,
that has to be planned for, I think, too. Yeah, contingency wise.
Yeah, and right, Robert, and the deal, I guess part of the question is the thing we're putting in place that we're talking about with Bold, and how, and getting agents more engaged, and the care calls and the gamification stuff, like how long is that a Band-Aid, or is that something that we're going to see results from longer term? And if so, how long? I mean, really, if you look at a pipeline and everybody's in Bold in May, theoretically, we're going to see the results of that in August, right? So we still got to get through May, June, July, next 90 days. And then theoretically, we should start to see the results of Bold in August to get us through maybe August, September, October. And then winter tends to be better for us, and hopefully will be better overall time-wise in terms of this COVID thing. Any other thoughts around that?
I think one of the things, like we're looking, say, like 90 days out, what the activities today produced in 90 days. I think it's not just about being aware of what changes we make going forward. I think to get an accurate assessment on how likely we are to get through that 90 days is really examining what we've got in escrow now. And
yes,
and for lack of a better word, I guess triage,
yep.
What is working, what isn't, is everything salvageable? If it's not, is it better to concentrate efforts somewhere else? So I think we really have to be honest about what's happening now and balance that time between attending to those things versus building that pipeline 90 days out.
Yeah, I think the triage approach is a good idea in terms of salvaging what we have. And I will say, and kudos to the brokers and everybody who's involved, there was a big shift. At the very beginning, we had escrows dropping. And then it was very clear that there was a shift. And I do believe that we helped this, meaning as a company, by providing scripts, by talking about it on the daily calls, by the brokers communicating it, and digging in deep with the agents on the deals that they had pending and finding solutions that help salvage the deals. Would you guys agree with that? Those what were involved in that process? I know Keone you were, and I know some of the agents had those deals. Robert's thumbs up. Thank you, Robert.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think that we've done a great job, and how do we continue to do that? Because we still see some things that are shaky, and then the longer this goes on, that can continue. So as far as being proactive in that, what does that look like? And then looking at our pendings and getting a sense of what that actually looks like and what that actually means. So, I mean, it'll be up to the owners, or I should say the investors, a core group, to deal with cash calls if that's what has to happen, right? So, and then also, are there further things available out there that we could maybe tap into? Like, for example, that $75,000 that we got for PPP, which is huge. So anyway, if you have other thoughts or ideas, I know that that's not necessarily the level that you're working at or involved in or have a lot of information about right now. However, if you have questions or you want information to be able to speak to that, like Keone being involved in we talked about Keone being involved in the financial planning committee for the ALC. So that would be a place where we could have those conversations further as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, move on to KPIs, key performance indicators. So what are our, for this business, key performance indicators? And, you know, one is identifying what they are, and two is, are we looking at them frequently enough? And so what I came up with, well, tell me what you guys think are our key performance indicators. I've already spoken to it at the whole beginning of the call. We talked a little bit about it. So tell me what you guys think are the things that we need to be looking at, the metrics, to determine where we're at, how we're doing. Are we red, yellow, or green?
Yeah. The number of agents we have, number of listings.
Yep, so those are both true. So agent count is one. Listings taken is another, right? What else?
Market Center vital signs? That might be a good one.
Yeah, the vital signs, just the mix and the makeup and what people are doing in terms of production. That's a specific report. I mean, that's a specific report that has various metrics on it.
Not just listings, but closings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at the key performance, it is closing. So that's one of the reasons I asked Shelby, how many closings did we have last month? Because now to me, that's too late for me to ask, right? That's a lagging measure and lagging indicator. So really what we want to look at are the leading, because the leading will control the lagging. So listings taken, which Cheryl mentioned, I think is a really big one. And again, I did look at that and noticed that we had half the listings taken last month. And then contracts written is huge. Like, how many contracts are we writing? Because those are leading indicators to determine what's going to ultimately go pending. And then what do we have pending? So what are we getting into pending to close the deal? And then of course, the closings is the ratio between, and the conversion between pendings and closings. I think really critical are listings taken, contracts written, pendings, out of the lore categories. And then the other thing, and of course agent count, because we need to maintain an agent count. Our Keller Williams business model makes it necessary for us to have a higher number of agents than other companies, because we share 48% of our profits, because we have a cap. So we have to maintain a certain number of agents, otherwise the math just isn't going to work for us. So, and then the other indicators that I'm looking at are productivity coaching statistics, because as Nicole, we've talked about, that is that is one of our greatest opportunities, is to be able to increase the level of production of the agents in our productivity coaching program, which is also kind of a quicker fix in terms of the people that we have now. And then recruited incoming company dollar and then outgoing company dollar. So what do we have coming into the company and future company dollar based on the market share of the agent that's coming in? And then what do we have going out? And the agents that are going out, are they bringing company dollar with them? What did they close? So, you know, those are multi-year trend metrics. Those are lore metrics. And really just looking at that on a daily basis rather than a weekly or monthly basis is Shelby, you know, you primarily I rely on. Where'd she go? I see Hello Kitty. I went to go look at Shelby's thing and I see Hello Kitty. Shelby, are you there? Can you hear me? Shelby? Shelby.
She was helping me with something. She'll be back shortly.
Oh, okay, there she is. Hi, Shelby.
Bathroom.
That's so funny. I know. So Shelby, what I was saying is that I'm relying very heavily on you to be able to communicate with me on the key performance indicators on a daily basis. We're doing it with company dollar, but what is it, you know, how many listings are we taking? How many contracts are we writing? How many new pendings do we have? How many new green sheets? So I think these are numbers we have to almost report on and talk about on a daily basis. And then incoming and outgoing company dollar we're monitoring as it goes, because that's going to really tell us where we're at. And then I can share that with everybody else. So, but you're the one that has your finger most on the pulse of that because you're seeing that stuff happen on the back end. Okay. So I think Shelby, you kind of own that part of the data to help me and communicate that to everybody else.
I updated the company dollar this morning. There are some changes overnight. I don't know if you got to look at that yet.
I did not. Were they in the positive or were they in the negative?
They were extended
neutral.
in May.
Extended. Okay, so that dropped our company dollar for April. Thank you. I'll look at that. Errol says, oh, okay, I'm looking at the chat box. Club texting is a great broadcast text message program. You can send to recipients like staff. Yeah, I think right now, Errol, we're working towards using Twilio because it's included and we don't have to incur an additional cost, is my understanding, I think, for that, and it's tied into Command. We have a text platform that we pay for that we're getting rid of, an additional text platform that we currently pay for. Okay, lower categories, very good, Nicole. Pendings, and then Dylan says growth, totally. Yeah, what is the fastest way for us to increase company dollar is getting our existing agents into higher level of productivity and getting one more deal, right? Or we recruit it in. We recruit the company dollar and the market share in. Any other questions or thoughts about that for KPIs? Okay. Okay, let me just go back and look at the workbook real quick and see where we're at. Okay, so we got through what we can do for free. We didn't really talk, we kind of skipped over team morale. Did we skip over team morale? We didn't really come up with anything on, we talked about unity, but we didn't actually do the exercise of how can we keep the finger on the pulse of team morale? How do we, other than the daily 830 calls with people who are participating and care calls, is there anything, and then the survey. I think those are three really good things. Care calls, survey, and the daily. What, is there anything else you guys can think of to help keep our finger on the pulse of team morale? Because we want to make sure it stays up. That's you guys too.
I think we get the information from all those, you know, especially the care callers. You know,
yeah.
So I don't think anything else.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that people who weren't engaging in like the morning calls and stuff like that, that maybe they were having motivational issue or challenges, and maybe, you know, their mindset was starting to deteriorate a little bit. But what I found during the care calls is that really isn't true, that they're busy doing other things, making good use of this time, whether or not it has to do with real estate business. some people are just delving into their kids and doing other things with that time. So I think it was an erroneous assumption that everybody who's not engaged or on that particular call doesn't mean that they're not doing okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because a lot of agents that are producing again for me. For a while my phone went quiet for the most part, more than it usually did. But now, I mean, just on this call that we've been on, I've signed like 3 deals. So, it seems that the people that were engaged before kind of reset and went, okay, we can figure out how to do this, right? So I think you're right in saying that some people are just not on, and they don't maybe see a need or whatever, or they're fine, right? So we have to take that factor into account also.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, to not make assumptions about what people are doing, and if they're not engaged, that they, are disengaged, or they don't care, or they're not working. The key, though, I mean, is instilled in the care calls, because remember, that's not, as far as a retention issue, if we're not reaching out and they're not engaged, they're more likely to leave. So by doing the care calls, just by doing that is really important.
And some of the care calls, when I call, I can tell, like, okay, these guys are good. And then the ones that aren't good, I might increase their care call, to, let me check in with you next week again, kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Or give them things to do, right?
Right.
Why don't you go on the MLS and look up, next time we talk, I'm going to ask you what the best deal is in Kaanapali or whatever, right? Just give them something to do, right?
Yes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, just wrapping up kind of what we were going over, the last part of these exercises is going into, meeting, making decisions, how we move forward over the next 90 days with this plan, and make sure that we stay on track to it. So it has some examples of questions that we kind of need to ask as a group as we go into future meetings and tracking for the next 90 days. So these are just some examples of questions. Are we tracking towards our target objectives, right? Have we been doing the activities that are leading us towards that 90-day plan that we set? And then what has changed since we last met? So this is our first meeting. We're going to be meeting again. And I know on the weekly executive and leadership team meetings is kind of what I'm looking at to use as a forum for this. And as long as you guys agree, and I want to make sure you guys agree in terms of the frequency of meetings, but in light of changes, how does anything need to shift? This way we can keep, because if we meet more frequently, we can course correct faster. How do we feel about our targets in terms of trajectory, pace, and impact? What must be true now to hit our targets? And essentially, this is not business as usual, right? So I think one of the things that I'm going to propose that we do is we shift not only our weekly executive and leadership team meeting to focus on this plan, also shift your 10s, because you're prioritizing, and I get that you have the tasks that have to be completed on a daily basis. That doesn't change, except that the fact that we're looking at the perspective differently, and we have to make sure that every activity that we're doing is leading us in this direction. So I think we shift our daily 10s and our weekly meetings to really focus on our key performance indicators, and then just the care call and the bold and all those few things that we talked about. So the question is, how often do we need to meet? Do we have a schedule that's working right now with the daily 10s and the weekly? I mean, I think they're pretty good, just as far as the frequency and just shifting the focus a little bit. And I want to make sure coming out of this that you guys feel like you have the ability and are empowered to make your own decisions in your role, and you can lead in that role, and you can do all the things that we've talked about, and you can take ownership of that, and everybody has clarity around that. And they had said, and it, you know, that it may be scrappy right now. It may feel scrappy because we're shifting, we're pivoting, we're working on some other plan for the next 90 days. And that's okay if it's not 100% smooth, because we're making changes and we're going to have to do it, you know, in a pretty quick way to be able to rally. So how often do we need to meet? Who needs to be in the room to help make decisions to move things forward? Tell me how you guys feel in terms of the plan, clarity, ability, ownership, and your roles.
Are the roles clear?
I think in terms of what we've established for, like, for example, for ALC, we know that a lot of the agent care call is going to fall on our shoulders, and rightly so. I think when it comes to some of the specific tasks and projects we've said about, I think there's clarity on that. I think one of the things we should probably think about making clear is to what extent this, let's call it brainstorming, and to what extent are we going to be working on these outside of the call to come up with new ideas? Because this is our first time looking at a lot of this. So my guess is we're going to have to figure out, are we going to be introducing new ideas to this equation? Are we going to be talking about what wasn't talked about here, but how to kind of bring it into the conversation? I think some of that is what we probably should figure out, because we're not going to answer all these questions today.
I think that to answer your question, we go with the plan that we have in place for the next 90 days. I think what may shift is the how and the strategies and the tactics that are going to produce the results that we want. Although, I mean, that's what this was about, was really coming up with that 90-day plan. I think that we have to work quickly and get something that we all agree and buy into, because otherwise the 90 days, I fear that the 90 days will pass us by and we won't have the plan in place, and Bold will come and we'll have 30 people in it and that's it. So I do want to focus on the 90-day plan that we have in place, although I agree and appreciate that there will be potentially better ideas and additional ideas of implementation and things that we can all do. And that's where the continuous conversation comes in on the daily 10s and the weekly meetings through ALC or, you know, via email, however you guys want to do that. And I mean, because yeah, you're going to process all this information and you're going to come up with more ideas, which is great. I want you to. And if you come up with another idea where you go, oh my gosh, here's an additional thing that I think is really important for us to focus on, we do it. I think there's a limited amount of things that we can as a group focus on, although I don't think that we're taxed yet. For example, the two other things that I have as a huge priority that I'm focusing on right now that are going to lead into this plan that we have is creating an ISA team within the company, which I've talked about on the daily call, and having the market center do targeted Facebook ads, which generate leads. Those are the two other big things I'm working on right now that are my top priorities to generate business now.
One of the specifics, for example, I don't personally have clarity on is, like we talked about introducing some new virtual social events. So
yes,
has somebody specifically been tasked to that or to those, or has it been broken up some other way?
No, so we're going to start. So we start that tonight with our Pauhana, and then we're going to integrate a game, and I'm going to ask the people on the call, hey, you guys, do you want to do this once a week? And hey, give me some suggestions about what you want to do. So I'm going to put that on them, the people that are actually participating. It's a good question, and that was my plan, and I didn't tell you that. And you guys have already given some great ideas about that. So I think we start with, and games is a great premise to that. So that's what I'm going to propose to everybody, that we build that around. Otherwise, honestly, if you guys hadn't said that to me today, we would have sat around today at 5 o'clock going, okay, what do you want to do for the next hour? Like, how's everybody doing? I did not have a plan. I'm just like, hey, let's hang out. So I will tax that with the people that are on the call. And my guess is that it'll be weekly. That's my thought.
On that call tonight,
yep.
Is it open only for our agents, or are we inviting outsiders to come too?
It's just for our agents. I mean, I don't know. We can talk about that if you want tonight. It's really up to you guys, honestly. Like, it's whatever everybody wants it to be. I think playing the game and having some sense of that. I mean, I'm not looking at creating a huge organization project. because again, I think it's for everybody to just be able to chill out. Although the questions, I love Nicole's idea about questions, and I love the idea about like a game. So yeah, we'll do that. So that's a good question. Anybody else have questions about like clarity questions or clarifying questions like that? So the process of it right now that I see, it's going to be through the care calls and through whatever we're sending out to people, and the conversation is going to be around those items: bold, daily call, and then the scripts that we shared in the chat box as a guide. Although you can customize your own script when you're making care calls. I think there's a few calls a few certain questions you want to ask about how can you help, you know, and just general how are they doing with everything. And then those other, you know, any of those other questions that you want. So does everybody have clarity around that? So a couple of notes that were also talked about on EntreLeadership were, you know, they said that our current schedule works if we, or this might have been just a note I came up with, but I think our, oh no, yeah, it was a note I came up with about our current 10s and weekly meetings. I do think our current schedule works if we just shift the focus. A Jim Collins quote that they shared, which I loved, was leadership is 1% vision and 99% alignment. Leadership is 1% vision and 99% alignment. We talk a lot about the vision, leaders, leadership. Lisa's the team leader. Lisa's running the show. It's up to Lisa. It's Lisa's call. This is not Lisa's like deal. This is everybody. And that's why you guys, I wanted to specifically, could Lisa have come up with her own 90-day plan and given it to all of you? Yes. That is not my, I want us to be in agreement. I want us to be in alignment. I want everybody to take ownership and, you know, kind of have some enthusiasm about the direction that we're headed and some optimism around it. And so, you know, and your input's incredibly valuable. I don't want to come up with all that myself. So, so I think if we keep that in mind, that it's 99% alignment, and then we're gonna get where we want to go if we're all in alignment. If we're not in alignment, we may have an issue. And anybody, you know, if we're not in alignment, we can talk offline about things. I'm happy to do that, and so that we can work to get back into alignment. Teams that will win don't just have a plan, they'll be in alignment. It's not the best idea that wins, it's the best idea that the most people can get behind. So, you know, we may have some great ideas, and there are in there that are just not necessarily things that we can implement right now, or that not everybody is in agreement with. So, you know, we want the most people to be able to get behind that. We want everybody moving in the same direction. I want to make sure you all are bought in. And like Dan said, even if we disagree and commit. Okay, we might not agree 100% on everything, and we commit. So when we walk out of this room, this meeting, just like if you've served on a board, you gotta just, you know, be a part of the plan. Okay. And I think we have a good plan in place to keep us in alignment with our daily 10s, our weekly, bold, all the different things we talked about implementing, and with the agents, the shift. So we just have to be willing as a group to change our mind. And like Kaylee says, new ideas are gonna come. I'm not saying that I just wanna have a general plan to stick to right now. We can add to it. We can change our mind, we can make pivots, and maybe we do something that fails. Okay, we have to know that it's possible that we're gonna do something that fails. And they had a great comment around that, which was pivot after the punch if necessary. We wanna hopefully pivot and not get punched. However, if we get punched and we fail, or we fall down, or we hit a problem, or something doesn't go our way, or we miss something that was a threat that we didn't assess or see coming, we still have to pivot. And another idea that I had is that I'm gonna figure out how to implement is reaching out to other business owners in our community, not just real estate, and potentially create, it's something I've wanted to do since I went to the EntreLeadership Conference, is create a group for businesses in our community that are masterminds. And this is a great time to do that and to talk strategy with other businesses and get some outside perspective. So that's Everything that I wanted to cover today. What else do you guys have? Give me your thoughts, feedback, takeaways, whatever you want to share. Is this helpful? Do you feel like we have a plan moving forward? You guys have clarity around what you need to do and want to do? Are we bought in? Give me some feedback. Was this a waste of time for you? Talk to me.
There might be a lot in the chat.
Oh, thank you. I didn't look at that. Okay.
To me, it reiterated that, you know, what we're doing matters, you know, especially in reference to the care calls. What we're doing matters, and it's a big part of how we're going to stay moving forward, stay positive, and help our agents stay positive and feel connected.
I love it. What we're doing matters. Yes, everybody.
I agree. When I do those care calls, sometimes I feel like apprehensive about starting. Yeah. It's really the starting.
It's the
but
starting.
Then when you actually call, the people really, they want that really a lot. So I think, you know, you're right. This is the sort of the recap that makes it feel important on our end.
Yeah. I think it obviously makes us stand out as a company above the rest of the brokerages too. That's pretty awesome. What as a whole this group is doing.
Love it. Thank you guys. Yeah, welcome to the world of the agent making lead gen calls, right? It's like, it's tough to get started, although once you do and you reach out to people that actually need your help, it feels pretty good.
I liked your phrase. I liked your phrase early on when you said leadership in a crisis, fear in a crisis, facts are your friends. I think that's great. I really like that.
I think getting us all on the same page, you know, helps.
Yes.
Same goals.
I think it just drives home the relationship aspect. It's our relationship with our clients, and it's our relationship with the agents.
Yeah, it's a relationship business. I mean, pretty much every business is, if you really boil it down, right? I love that. Yeah, thanks, Robert. It is. It's really about relationships. And we do care, and we do love them, and we do, you know, and I care about all of you. And, you know, I also want to make sure you guys are okay. You guys, my care call, this is partially my care calls to you. Yes,
I had another question about care calls as well.
Yes.
As we're talking about this, I'm thinking about how we define the groups that we're working in and that we associate with more closely than others. Like, for example, the leadership group, the morning care calls. In a sense, we're forming these communities within the community. I think about it as I see some of my fellow ALC members that are checking in and out of the calls. And I feel like I'm a part of that in the ALC, like it's a group that has purpose and makes contribution, and then I can call these people and ask for help. So as we're making these care calls, does it make sense in one way or another? Is there a script that's out there that also reminds the agents that they can be calling each other, that they can be contributing to ideas about what's going on? I think if there's that sense of belonging, and if we can somehow foster that, I think that would go a long way, because most of my contact and all of it since February with you all has been through this computer screen right here. And granted, I got to see and know a lot of you prior to that, but I know I can call each of you. I know I can talk to you. And even though we're doing this, for example, Joyce called me the other day. We had a luxury meeting, and but it's easy, and I think it's easy because we've convinced ourselves of that sense of belonging. So I think if we remind the agents and get them to think about maybe talking to each other, I think that'll help.
Yeah, I think that's great. I would suggest doing that. Maybe do that on the morning call on Monday. Kaylee E., I'd love for you to do that. I mean, they hear me talk way too much.
Okay.
So I would, I think that would be great to share that and remind them to reach out to each other and that they have each other to lean on as resources. And I think you're right. And when I do see the agents do that, like there are some agents that I know do that all the time. Like Evie and Todd do that all the time. Like there's groups and it's awesome. And I love when somebody calls me and says, hey, I was talking to so-and-so and so-and-so, two other agents in the company, and this is what we discussed, or what do you think about this? Yeah, I love it. Let's remind them that that's part of And the more that they interact that way, the better, as long as they're talking to each other in a positive way and it's not fear, because once in a while we'll get that too. We're in that, and we nipped that in the bud. I had a couple agents that were doing that, and they were talking to each other, and it was all about doom and gloom and just not good stuff, right? Negative stuff. So I'm like, okay, why don't you guys stop talking to each other for a minute, or why don't you change the script on that? Fortunately, that doesn't happen very frequently in our company, although it can happen. So yeah, bring that up, Kaylee, on Monday, please.
Please. I think it could actually be maybe below the surface, maybe not as open, but I think it can also be a part of the call this afternoon for Pauhana. I mean, that's what we do when for Pauhana face to face. So I think in addition to games, if there is a celebration of the fact that we are having a Pauhana, not just the activity of it, but the fact that it can encourage the others. They don't have to wait till the next Friday to have a Pauhana. They can send their Zoom invite to catch up with somebody Saturday night. So I think as long as we get them thinking about what we're doing, but don't limit it to what we're doing, is what it's about.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. We can talk about that today. That's great. I love it.
I have a little chime in.
Yeah.
Sorry. I actually
Yes, Joyce.
Somebody
No,
came to my neighbor's my listing next door, and so I had to, from 20 feet away, give my 2 cents. Kind of like coffee talk or something to chime in with the 8:30 call. I mean, we're all creatures of some kind of libation or food. And maybe it's like, bring your favorite coffee mug to the, something to entice in the beginning, and like with the Pauhana, so that there's an intention and a reason attached to it. Just to make it as fun as possible.
That's a good idea.
Cute. Yeah, I like it.
Keone can have his hat contest.
Yeah. Keone. I still haven't seen the white wig. Keone hasn't found his white wig. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the chat box. Several agents, Nancy says, told me they're exercising with their family mate at 8:30 a.m. and missed the calls. I mean, yeah, it's going to happen. And I will tell you, in the past, the goal is to find the best possible time. And the best possible time, again, per MREA, is going to be in the morning. Now, granted, the family time is in the morning in MREA. It's usually earlier than that, but it could be up until 9 o'clock. I guess what I would say is we are going to change the calls during Bold and do it at the end of the day, and we'll see if that's better. In the past, we've gone crazy, pulling our hair out, changing schedules based on agent schedules, and it always backfires. Like 99% of the time, it becomes more problematic to do that. So we kind of have to commit and say, all right, well, they can prioritize around it or not, and that's okay. We'll see how it goes at 4 o'clock. I do know that, yeah, people have other stuff that they're doing, and I get that they're exercising, and I totally get it. Maui coach, headphones and listening while working out is a great idea. I love it. There you go. There's a way to solve that, right? So if they tell you that, say, great. Well, why don't you exercise with us? Like, you don't have to have your camera on. Just listen, and we play music at the beginning. It's all good. Okay. Nancy, we had a FaceTime cocktail half hour with client friends and talked about our families, activities, outlook on current environment, and future trips and fears. I love it. That's good. That's great. Another fun idea for the happy hour could be for everyone to send over their favorite meme, funny picture. Oh man, yeah, that's a great idea too, Dylan, is posting their favorite, sharing their favorite meme or funny picture, or uploading that, because there have been a lot of really crazy ones, and I've seen people do that on Facebook, and it's pretty funny to go through those. I like it. Or I guess a lot of people are doing senior photos too. Okay, great, you guys. Anything else before we go? Shares, takeaways, yeah.
One thing I thought of is, while we were talking about Bold and getting agents involved, I was a captain last year, and so what I'm going to do is call all my team members and ask them and let them know that I'm going to join, and if they are going to join with me. And it's, it's Facebook, it's $99, so we'll see. Hopefully I'll get some to participate.
That's a great idea, and it also leads to, we probably want to look at the roster for last year and see. So Latasha, would you so I guess you're going to send me the updated roster as you get it for current registrants. And then I'd love to look at the roster from last year where we can compare and see if there's anybody who took it last year that's not registered, that's with us.
And quite honestly, I wasn't going to join it because I think it's quite painful and uncomfortable. But I'm looking at my pipeline and I'm scared. So I need to do something. So I'm committing to it.
I love it, Nancy. Yeah, I saw that you joined and I was so pleasantly surprised and happy.
You know,
although you've done that the last couple of times, it's like, I don't know, I don't want to do it. And then you're like, I'm doing it. And it's helped you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There was an objection brought up with the coaches that I thought was really cool and something we should consider is somebody says, well, I don't understand. They're going to hold me accountable for all of this activity, but I'm sitting at home. How am I supposed to meet people? And I said to the coach, I said, you know what I would tell that person? It's their responsibility, the coaches of Bold, to teach us how to grow our business in this environment. It is then our job to do the activities. So if they don't teach us, that's on them. And it was Marion, and she goes, I'm going to take Bold.
Yay. That's so great.
I think that's something to discuss, right? That's
the
whole thing is you're gonna learn.
Thanks.
Yeah, how to do this. Learn how. If people don't know how and they're concerned about doing it because they don't know the how, the coach will guide. I love it. That's great. Because the people that know the how and are doing the how are getting results. I mean, I have a friend in Chicago who's an agent with KW, and she's like, oh, I just took, I don't know, 3 or 4 listings in the last week with how she's doing business virtually. So we may need to get better at that and get some better ideas around that. Although we have the tools that we need to do it. It's just a matter of how do we do it. So I love that. Thank you. Great, you guys. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking a good chunk out of your day to do this today and for your contribution. I appreciate it. I feel really good. We have a game plan moving forward, and that would be a win for us, getting this stuff done in the next 90 days. So thank you.
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
Friday.
See you guys
Aloha
later.
Friday.
Okay. All right. See you later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.